All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin our meeting this evening. Welcome to the Town of Aurora General Committee meeting. We are starting here on Tuesday, June 21st, 2022, 7 p.m. in our council chambers. I'd like to call order, Mr. Clerk. I've already said that the time is 7 p.m. And I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We'd like to start by acknowledging the Anishinaabe lands in which we live and work are the traditional and treaty number 20 territories of the Chippewas of Georgina Island. As a municipality, Aurora has shared responsibility for the stewardship of this land while recognizing the many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaty of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Absolutely. At this point, before we move any further, I'd like the mayor to report out from closed session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Clerk, we're reporting out a closed session. So I guess we're recessing this. Is that what we're doing for time being? Okay. Reporting out a closed session. We have one item. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, one item of council reporting out of closed session. The motion is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Someone like to move that? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions on that? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Confirming bylaw.
Recorded vote.
Oh, sorry, recorded vote. I apologize. When I'm not sitting in that chair, I always forget what I'm doing. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the only item of council reporting out of closed session this evening. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim votes yes. Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Humphreys was absent for the meeting. Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Councillor Gartner?
I vote yes.
And Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gallo votes yes. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming bylaw. Would like to move that. Councillor Gilliland, seconder. Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Madam Chair, back to you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for allowing us to continue our meeting. At this point, I'd like, if possible, approval of the agenda. If I may have a motion of the to approve the agenda, the revised agenda. Moved by Councillor Gilliland and Councillor Kim. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Oh, Councillor Gartner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have tonight on our agenda a report on a draft OP official plan. We've spent close to $500,000 on this exercise. It's very important. Mr. Mayor, do we have 10 minutes and then another 10 minutes? Madam Chair, 10 minutes and then another 10 minutes to speak on this item?
Councillor Gartner, at this point, we don't, but we can always ask for that during the discussion. Do you, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
your feedback or Mr. Clerk? So it's 10 and 5. Councillor Gartner, is that all right to start?
Okay, but I think due to the importance of this item.
You'd like to have 10 and 10?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Gartner would like to ask for 10 and 10. She's moving that forward. May I have a seconder? Councillor Gilliland, all in favor to allow for more time? Oh, I'm sorry.
The motion on the floor is to approve the agenda as is. There is no discussion or debate about the agenda, whether unless you want to remove or add an item specific to it. We're now talking about a specific item. It'd be more appropriate if Councillor
During that
Gardner
time.
brought that up and asked for a waiver of the procedural bylaw for that specific item when it was on the floor.
During that time. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Councillor
Councillor Thompson. I'll do that.
Yeah, perfect. So Councillor Gartner, at the time, we'll go ahead and we'll vote on it at that time. Thank you very much. Good point, Councillor Thompson. All right, so if we can move back, I think we had approval from Councillor Gilliland and Counselor Kim to move forward the approval of the revised agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest of the nature thereof? Seeing none. We have no community presentations this evening. We do have delegations this evening. We have two. For 6.1, we have Ms. Fiona Durant and Ms. Keisha Telfer, the Aurora Black Community regarding Aurora Black Community Year to Date Update. So if you would like to come, Ms. Durant and Keisha, if you'd like to join it. Okay, perfect. All right. So welcome very much, Fiona. You've got 5 minutes, as you know, and please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, council, and everyone that's here today. I have a video that will be played. I think it's only appropriate as we wrap up to come with our thank you to the town, to the community for everything that we've accomplished. And it just started, we wanted to give you a quick video to look at what that is, and maybe have those who want to share how that 2 years impact you, and how not how we move forward or anything like that. It's just to really show you what we've been doing and where we're heading. So to you. Oh, I have a few copies here. If anyone need a copy of my rough draft to move around as they watch the video, then we can pass that to you. Thank you. It is a great pleasure to provide you this brief summary of our 1 year progress report 2021. I would love to acknowledge that without the amazing team we have as board of directors, our work would not have been possible. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge the amazing support we have from partners, sponsors, collaborators, because it is evident that work, participation, collaboration, community involvement and engagement are what bring change. So thank you to the community and all of our supporters and collaborators and partners and sponsors for what we have done together in 2001. A financial statement will be uploaded to our website as well. That will be
What's challenging is finding the right help, I think, sometimes, because you can lean on someone, or you can say, I want to do this, and some people will react in a way that you
generation to generation, to warm up your thoughts and set light imagination. When you breathe, feel the blaze of ash flame air in your lungs. Feed the fire of you inside. The conflagration just begun. Stir the embers that singe the sky with every spin, strum, sachet, and stroke. For their first notice fire, it is always signals by smoke. It carries memory of solidity before fuel converts to flame. Goes down upon the gathering, reflects upon from whence it came. Ascends when free from inhibition, sets an example we should heed. While chaff lit incendiary burns at a flame with constant speed. Take the dust from your clothing. Use your singular voice to blend with the chorus before us. Make inflammatory choice, spark the light. Yes.
your responsibility to hold us accountable to our mission to create a safe space where all citizens of Aurora feel belong, to provide work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, to bridge cultures and build relationships.
Right now, and you described some of it. Their social justice issues are still not top of mind for everyone. And as we're coming out of the pandemic, and as you said, with what's happening with some of the protests, there are a lot of issues. And I'm just wondering, when you look at where we are right now, what do you feel is one of the most important things that we can do, that allies in government, in positions such as Michael and Tom and all of us who are here today are in, what can we do as allies to really make a difference, to really move forward from where we are now?
Well, I think it's important to speak up and to speak out at the right time. Oftentimes, I find that politicians come after the fact when the community does want them to be there. When the issue is such that you be there right up front and not come after the fact. I think just keeping in touch with community. I think ensuring that you have an eye. When I walk into a room, I am 84, I'm 85 this year.
Amazing.
When I walk into a room and I look around, I can tell that the room is right or not right. I can see too many gray hairs or too many white faces or too many young faces or too many old faces.
Watching that, we just want to again just say thank the town for the collaboration.
It is
the
a great
partnership.
pleasure to provide you this brief summary of
And we're looking forward to another amazing year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Fiona. I would like, before, stay right there. May I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson, any questions or comments for the delegate this evening? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Rand. Thanks so much for coming today and speaking to us and showing your accomplishments. I know you and your organization have done so much in the past couple of years. I remember when you first started and you were getting your message out, and just how you've grown so quickly with your events, and your collaboration has grown. And we really do appreciate it. And we appreciate you. And you are a bright light in our community. And please continue on doing the good work that you do.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gallo.
Oh, thank you very much for coming out and providing us with an update of the work you've done in the last year. 2 weeks ago, the Sports Hall of Fame came and presented and did something similar. And I told them that it's these types of organizations that make our community special. And it's the same with your organization. And I don't want to, even for a second, take for granted the things that you do, because you're not on this side of the table. You're not either a politician or a paid staff. You're a volunteer. And far too often, sometimes we take advantage of that, or we forget that these are people that just live in our community and want to do good and want to contribute and want to make our community better. And I want to thank you for that, because you have made our community better. You mentioned at the beginning that if we had any kind of questions or anything we wanted to ask, and I know about a week or so ago, 5 or so days ago, there was an apology from the Toronto Chief of Police after a study that they did. Do you have a sense from our community whether we can relate? Twofold. One is whether we can relate, and whether or not you're aware of, or maybe someone else, maybe Mr. Mayor, whether or not YRP is doing any similar studies or has done any similar studies. In today's day and age, borders, pretty much non-existent. We live close to a metropolitan city. And that doesn't mean that the issues that are happening there are necessarily happening here. We don't live in a bubble. But I'm curious to know from your perspective, that whole dynamics and how it's affected us. Sorry, just to.
One of the ways I have applied myself in anything I do is from a place of gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion. And it's interesting that you asked that, because when everybody was calling me at work about what's happening on TV, I didn't know what it was. and I hear different community response, for the first time I drew this conclusion that I will no longer say that I don't speak for all Black people or all people. Because I've never seen, say, the prime minister or even a council or a mayor get up and say, I don't serve all people. And I would rather say I speak for everyone that can relate, and anyone who feel I don't speak for them can start speaking on their own behalf. And so say that long story to say, I know there's a talk that's from the Black community that have responded to the news so far that they don't accept the apology. And we all are individual with different perspective. And I think apologies is a start, right? I have to trust the person really means it. It's not my place to say that person is not honest about saying, I'm really sorry, or that the apology is not authentic. Obviously, following any empathy is action. So the real thing that going to bear fruit with the apology is what comes next. As to, so that's the best answer I can give you in terms of how does that affect us. It's really important when we know already what's happening, but when the higher up comes in and say, here's a paper, it's like when your child is missing and you get a little closure. You know they're missing, you know this is happening, but you hear where they are and what happened. So it's like giving a little closure and open up the conversation to say, okay, where we go next. So that's awesome. And as you've probably answered your own question with in terms of York region, it is the call now to have them regional specific. But as you said before, it might not be necessary. My son go to school at Finch and Humber or somewhere down by Lakeshore, right? So they're being stopped there or wherever. So we know that it has no restriction. A lot of people live in Aurora that works in Toronto. So in terms of that, I think what we can look and probably even maybe appeal to our council as it turns over and look into another couple of years is what are our duty into these. A lot of times we put motions on the table. You know, we've done a great job the other day and we advocate on our behalf for town, and we're looking at with different municipalities to get things done. And so maybe that's something we can start to see, collaborate and have these conversations with communities like ourselves and all others, whether they're Black or not, because it affects all of us. Is what can we do? And how can we do it together? So thanks for bringing that up, and thanks for paying attention, because these things are happening, and when they come up, we should be aware so we can be engaged with our community and have preventative measures and not waiting for Aurora to be there before we start looking to say, what can we do? So thank you.
Thank you for the answer. So I guess continued success. I have no doubt that you will continue to take us on this side of the table to task to make sure we do our jobs to help you to the best of our abilities, and I'm sure we will. So thank you for coming, and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gartner, my apologies, there you were. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Ms. Durand and her team, you've done so much for this community, and actually you've done so much to educate me. And I thank you for that. I thank you for your work, and I wish you continued success, because I believe it will benefit our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Any other comments or questions from I just wanted to say, Ms. Fiona Durand, thank you very much for delegating this evening, providing a review, the memories, as said around the table, you know, the learnings and understanding. And often, you know, when I think, you know, oh yeah, I know, and I have so much to learn. It's other people's experience and perspectives. We have to educate and continue to educate and continue to learn. Because when we think we know, we know nothing. So thank you for that. Thank you for continuing your powerful organization.
Thank you so much.
And I wanted to add one more thing. Congratulations to the award that you won. Your entire team won the Inclusivity Award. It's a major accomplishment. And I just wanted to congratulate you all. And I look forward to all the incredible work happening and coming forward for our beautiful town. You've made a significant impact on.
I appreciate
very
it. Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again. At this point, we have a second delegation. If I can invite Mr. Bruce Hall. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. All those in favor to receive the delegation this evening? Opposed? Motion carries. My apologies. I'm so sorry. Mr. Bruce Hall, if you can, Principal, the Planning Partnership, item 9.6 PDS 22-023, application for zoning bylaw amendment, site plan and heritage permit to 578461 Ontario Inc. for location 15356 Yonge Street. Welcome, Bruce, to our council chambers. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be in a live meeting.
Yes.
It feels weird, but in a very good way. Tonight you have a comprehensive staff report before you, so I'm not going to reiterate a lot of technical details we presented to you on this application in January, the public meeting. I'm really just going to make some very high level remarks around process, because I know that's very important to council in terms of what's been done since the public meeting. So this application was submitted in July 2017 and went to its first public meeting in November 2017. And there was concerns expressed by a number of residents, as well as the Aurora Historical Society and the Ontario Heritage Trust. And we made a commitment personally and on behalf of our client at that meeting to work with all those groups, including council, the Aurora Historical Society, the Ontario Heritage Trust, and the public, to work towards a development which responded to their concerns. And in the 5 years since then, we worked extensively with the Aurora Historical Society, firstly, and the Ontario Heritage Trust, to ensure that the impacts upon Hillary House are minimized or mitigated, especially during construction, and that in return, there's some benefit that accrues to Hillary House. This involves several workshops with the Aurora Historical Society to ensure that there's positive impacts around this development. And obviously construction is mitigated. Some of the positive impacts are to provide a new driveway, consolidated driveway for both developments, and construction of a potential pathway to the rear should the parking lot that they're looking to create be fulfilled. And all these measures, as well as a number of others, are set out within a binding legal agreement with the Aurora Historical Society. We've also worked with town departments and agencies extensively, getting input, securing necessary approvals or support from the Design Review Panel and the Heritage Advisory Committee. And lastly, we've worked with a number of area residents directly that were present at the first and second public meetings to make refinements and to respond to their issues and make certain assurances. Overall, since the development submission was made, there have been a number of significant refinements to the development proposal, including reducing the height, the GFA, the number of units, refining the massing and materials, which staff will review with you, and providing for enhanced landscaping on and off site. At the second public meeting, we presented refined plans to the council and public. And again, public made some very specific comments, particularly around the impacts of construction, because they're seeing a lot of construction in their neighborhood, as well as views and landscaping. So we set out to engage with these residents again directly and provide additional information. We met with them in person on April the 25th and presented the refinements, provided details of a detailed construction management plan, information around the work that we were doing with the LSRCA around stormwater and flooding, because they identified that as a concern, as well as following up on a number of detailed questions they posed. We followed up with an email to them on May 25th, setting out a number, about 8 or 10 issues we responded to. And as a result, I can say they are generally satisfied in the way that we've dealt with these issues, that we listened and responded to them, and they want to continue to work with us through the site plan process as well as construction. That that my warning?
1 minute.
So we worked with the LSRCA to make refinements, respond to all their issues since then, and they are on board as well as planning staff. We support the recommendations in the report before you tonight. We agree with the analysis. We'd like to thank staff and council, the public, Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, and all the other agencies for working with us. And we respectfully ask that you approve the development as recommended. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Do we have any questions for the delegates? I may have a motion to receive the delegation. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gallo, all in favor? None yet. After the questions, what's wrong with me? All right. Any questions for the delegate this evening? All right. Oh, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad you came to speak because I wanted to hear from you directly. And the report talks about how the collaboration you had with the residents and have come to some amicable terms with some of the concerns. So I just kind of want to hear directly from you. There are some comments about some of the people who were adjacent to the property. And there's some agreement about the landscaping and such. And you have some sort of construction plan with noise, vibration and such. And perhaps maybe you can just kind of touch on that a little bit. In case I do have some constituents contacting me, then perhaps we could have this transparent conversation now.
Mr. Hall?
Certainly. We presented a very detailed construction management plan to them, dealing with a wide number of matters. It's probably a little bit more detailed than we're used to dealing with at this point, but a lot of their concerns focused around the things that they're dealing with right now today, in terms of noise and dust control and parking. Parking was a big issue. We've actually secured temporary parking through the church across the street for construction workers during construction. There is a fair amount of kind of, I'll call it infill construction happening in the neighborhood. And even when we've been told, even when those types of developments are happening, there can be 6 or 8 different trades at any time for one development. So with a larger construction project like this, there'd be a larger contracting team. So the church is very happy because it's off hours for them, some financial assistance to them. We all know that churches need that sort of thing today, so it's mutually beneficial. Some landscaping for the most immediate neighbors off-site. They've agreed to that, and we're going to try to implement that through with cooperation of the town through the site plan and site plan agreement. The comments really stemmed around flooding and stormwater management, because at the time we went to the public meeting, there was outstanding comments from the LSRCA. We've since dealt with them quite extensively. They have signed off on both the stormwater management and hydraulic analysis. So they are satisfied with the development and have no issues with the development and the rezoning going forward.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any other questions?
If I may just follow up to the stormwater management, that was going to be my follow-up question. So I'm glad we're talking about this topic. You had mentioned that there was a myriad of outstanding items in regards to water management and flooding, and that you have this sign off. So I don't know if it was reflected in this report. Was there some green design infrastructure or elements to that or standard that was implemented through the hydraulics or the storage? Is there a renewal? Is there some sort of offset there that would be beneficial through this stormwater management plan?
Mr. Hall?
It's not necessarily through just the stormwater management plan itself. We submitted a green development report as part of the development application. It deals with a number of initiatives. And as far as around the outstanding matters at the time, it was really very technical issues with respect to updating the hydraulic analysis to reflect the refinements that had been made to the proposed development in terms of the piers that the building sits on top of, as well as the stormwater management report and the modeling. So that was all updated. They reviewed that. And then from a policy perspective, they have to be satisfied that the approach meets the intent and the policies of the growth plan and the PPS. Of a two-pronged issue that they had to satisfy themselves with.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Any further questions of the delegate? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your delegation this evening. We'll refer to item 9.6. The comments, may I have all in favor of the delegation? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think there's some letters of support, I believe. I heard. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we have no consent agenda items this evening. We also, from an advisory committee meeting, we have no minutes as well. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair, I would ask if we can move, if everyone's agreeable, move 9.6 forward since they are here this evening, and we can deal with that and then move on to the regular agenda items.
Perfect, thank you. And may I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gartner, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move item 9.6 forward then. All right, so why don't we do that at this point? I may have a mover for item 9.6. Councillor Gilliland, Mr. Mayor, any comments or questions for item 9.6? All right, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I did notice in the report as well, there was strong support from the Heritage Committee, and I know that you were on it as well. And I was hoping that maybe perhaps you could share some of the dialogue around the committee's meeting and their support for this, and just kind of embellish a bit, please.
Thank you. Thank you through you. Well, from an advisory committee perspective, from a heritage only, that they felt that the proposal was complementary in terms of the intent of the new build, and that it would go well. I mean, there wasn't many concerns. There was some discussion around some of the look and feel, the aesthetics, but overall, Councillor Gilliland, they were very, very in favor. Absolutely, you tried to steer away from the planning piece and just focus on heritage. But they couldn't help but understand this is a development that needs to happen. And it's going to be very, very valuable for our community, the development itself. So, there wasn't a whole lot of, there was actually no negative connotations at all. So all very positive, very favorable in terms of the whole development. So they also were very pleased with the developer in terms of working with the residents and for surrounding areas. So they felt that that was positive as well. So there's not much more I can add to that, but if anyone else has any comments, that was what I took from the meeting.
Great, thank you very much. And I guess through you, Madam Chair, to whether it was yourself or maybe a staff member, I know it was touched on that there was some work that was done in collaboration with the Aurora Historical Society and Ontario Trust. I'm sure the Hillary House also had much to say. And if maybe I can get some comments from staff, maybe perhaps just about some feedback there, whether there was some support there. I read in the report there was some support there, but I wouldn't mind just kind of, for transparency's sake, just kind of hear a little bit more detail. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. And I know Mr. Mamuno can add, but absolutely the Heritage Society was very happy with the development, really thankful for the collaboration between the developer and the Hillary House. They really do see this as something that's really going to be really well for the town of Aurora in general, and some of the enhancements for the property themselves. So really happy about that. One of the compliments, I believe, sorry, I won't speak. I'll let Mr. Mamuno speak, and then I'm going to look at some notes that I wrote and get back to that. Mr. Mamuno, if you have anything further to add, I'm going to look at some notes I wrote from the night.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. In addition to the Heritage Advisory Committee being in full support of the proposal, the Aurora Historical Society is as well, and the Ontario Historic Heritage Trust. Thank you. I was also in support, and they hold an easement over the driveway that is shared by the Hillary House in this proposal. So total support from all those agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Mamuno. And just to add further, just some other comments. Sorry, my mind's the Heritage Society really felt that some of the enhancements, including the protection of the home, and that it's going to be part of the residential, like a separate residential building. They felt that piece, Councillor Gilliland, was really, the committee was really happy about that. It's actually going to be a single dwelling home that will be renovated to its former glory, and that it can be purchased by a resident. And then behind is the development. They felt that kind of really took advantage of displaying, the front foremost is having the heritage home and then the building behind. So they felt that was really very positive. So in terms of other comments that Mr. Ramuno mentioned, that's how they felt altogether.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Any other comments Councillor Gartner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When this application, when the planning list came forward and this application was on it, and it had been on for so long, there was a thought that we might remove it, but I spoke strongly in support of keeping it on the list because I know how much effort has gone into this development, and how happy Hillary House is with it. So in that context, I do have some concerns. The first one is the front porch. In looking at the picture of the house as it was, and it is different now, the porch design has changed a bit, but it seems to me that the front porch is integral to this heritage home. So I see in the report that the porch will be inspected and potentially removed if it's not sound. I'm asking you if that could be reconsidered to ensure that a front porch is kept in place.
Okay. Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the delegate, I think this one.
Oh, the delegate is, can we do?
Finish?
Unfortunately, we'll have to go to Mr. Ramuno at this point.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Mr.
unfortunately, positively. Mr. Ramuno, if we can add maybe your thoughts on that, if we can go back to the developer to see if they would try their best to keep the front porch.
Certainly through you, Madam Chair. I mean, that's their plan. They had submitted a very detailed heritage conservation plan that details the items that need to be removed and items that they're going to maintain and preserve, exterior to the building and the interior work as well. They've identified the porch as one of those items that they're going to try to preserve. Again, they've just raised the issue that if it's beyond repair, they will then replicate the exact look of the porch. But that's their intent, is try and preserve as much as they can.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. That's not clear in the report. Also, with respect to the foundation plantings, is there any chance that these plants could be saved?
Mr. Ramuno can help us with that one, the plantings, if we can have those perhaps saved.
Through Madam Mayor, sorry, Madam Chair.
That's okay.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, we'll have to take a look. I think there are some items that I believe the foundation plantings are on the other side of the driveway. And again, this is something that we can certainly have a discussion with the applicant as they continue to move forward and we finalize the site plan agreement. But as I've mentioned, and I think we've attached to the report, they prepared a detailed conservation plan that outlines all those items that they're going to try to preserve and those items that may need to be removed, and the plan for the how to rebuild those.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. Councilor Gartner.
Sorry, Madam Chair, because of the age of these plants, I'm thinking that there are probably people in the community that would like to claim them. So if you could just keep that in mind. With respect to the 100-year and regional flood evaluations, specifically with respect to P2 parking, it says the elevation is 255.3 meters. Do you know what the floodplain, how this goes with the measurement of the floodplain?
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. can help us with that one.
To you, Madam Chair, I'll have to take a look at those numbers, but all I can say is that the Conservation Authority has obviously signed off on the proposal, and the building, apart from the piers, are all above the regional floodplain. So there are no issues there, but I'd have to confirm the actual spot elevations.
Thank
Thank
you, Mr.
you.
Muno.
Through you, Madam Chair, landscaping strip, the buffers, it says here, larger buffers in strategic locations such as the rear property line. Is the rear property line the area that's next to the EP area?
Mr. Muno.
To you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Do you know what buffers are required and what buffers are proposed?
Mr. Muno.
Through you, Madam Chair, again, the majority of the side yard and front yard is to be maintained as the open space. There are a number of trees that need to be removed, and most of those trees have been identified as either in poor condition or either dying. And there's a number of trees as part of our tree replanting plan that will be planted on site and off site as well. But the back portion will be zoned and is zoned, continue to be zoned EP.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Muno. I'm trying to understand what the required buffers are and if they will be maintained.
Mr. Muno.
So with respect to any EP buffers, they are being maintained. And they are part of that area that's being identified as zoned EP.
Thank you.
Councilor Garner.
Yes, and I think it was mentioned at one of the council meetings, public planning, perhaps, that this doesn't seem to be a significant, have any significant features on it, but it is zoned EP, and those buffers should be honored. Thank you. A last comment is, sometimes we fight over maintaining one tree, not destroying one tree. And there are so many trees that are going to be going down. To the developer, if there's any possibility of saving some of those trees, it would be appreciated. And it would also be right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Garner. Absolutely. It'd be amazing if we can keep as many as possible, for sure. Thank you. Councilor Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on one of the resolution or recommendation number 7. I'm just, if someone could help me out with that. It says that in accordance with section 45(1.4) of the Planning Act 1990 RSO as amended, the exemption to the 2-year moratorium on minor variance applications after adoption of a privately initiated zoning bylaw amendment be granted to permit the submission of a minor variance applications if required for consideration to the Committee of Adjustment. I don't recall seeing that. Typically, I'm just wondering if there's something specific why we have that as part of our recommendations.
Thank you, Councilor Gallo. Mr. Ramuno.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. To Councilor Gallo, no, it's a provision that came about in the Planning Act, I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even a little longer, even before we did our last zoning bylaw update. And the provision actually states that if an application for a rezoning is approved by council, there's that 2-year freeze that they couldn't apply for an amendment to that zoning bylaw, being a minor variance or a rezoning, without seeking approval from council first before submitting that application. So I know in the past, this is a standard clause that we have been including in a lot of the reports, just to get council's authority upfront, that when the application, once it's approved by council, when the applicant goes away and starts finalizing those final engineering drawings, if for some reason they do need another slight, exception to a zoning bylaw standard, a side yard or rear yard, we don't need to come back to council to ask permission to submit a report. This recommendation would allow them to just proceed with a minor variance application if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Councilor Gallo.
So through you to the chair, if we don't include this and there was some type of change needed that was minor and would qualify, they wouldn't be able to go to Committee of Adjustment, through you, Madam Chair?
Mr. Remono?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. They wouldn't be able to submit an application until they first approached council and sought council's approval to actually submit that because they're within this 2-year freeze.
Okay, maybe I'll ask for a further explanation between now and council.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Councilor Gallo. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? on Item 9.6. Oh, Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think when you look at this application, you see lots of positives. I mean, I think ultimately when you talk about the Knowles Redmond House and the fact that the applicant is going to restore it and bring it back to its former glory, I think is the part that, you know, we encourage, and we are very happy to see that this is going to be happening. Ultimately, when you look at this is the type of thing that we want to encourage, we want to see. We also talk about many times about the missing middle, the housing crisis. And, this is going to provide units that are going to be right in our downtown core. Within our official plan height requirements is 4 stories. I think everything that we've asked for, the applicant has worked with us, has worked with the residents, has worked with the Heritage Trust, has worked with the Historical Society, and has come up with a plan that not only provides that missing middle, provides more units within our downtown core through the revitalization of our downtown, and will help further grow the downtown, but will also restore an important piece of our history. And I think ultimately that is what we always ask for, is to make sure that that history will be there for another 150 years. And so I want to thank the applicant for all the work that they did with everybody in this town. This is what we encourage. This is what we'd like to see. I wish every applicant did this type of collaboration with our residents and with council and with staff to get to this point where we have basically a development that we can all agree is a win-win. So thank you. And we're all looking forward to seeing this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And before we call the vote, and I won't repeat much of what you heard around the table, but we can't thank you enough for the collaboration and the work with the residents, Historical Society. You really, and to Mr. Mayor's perspective, it could be an example for other developments. You can make great developments with working with the town and the individuals and community groups within our town. And the Redmond House, since I moved here in 1999, we drive by and think it is so beautiful. And I just hope it doesn't disappear on us. And we can't thank you enough for keeping it in our community. It means a lot. Heritage is a huge part of the heart of Aurora, and having that come back to its former glory is something we're all going to be anticipating and really looking forward to, along with the development for housing that's really much needed. So thank you very much. And on that note, let's vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Great stuff. All right. So I guess we're going to move backwards a little bit here, and we'll move on to item number 9.1. And I'm just going to move sorry. All right, item number 9.1. Sorry, guys, remember. Presentation. Lisa. Hi, welcome. Just give me 1 minute. Lisa, I'm having a little problem with my agenda. Just give me 1 second. Come on. My computer's playing games on me today. All right. Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. We are going to have a presentation of our Sark Gymnasium update, the final design and budget update. Thank you very much. Take it away.
Thank you. Happy to be here this evening to provide you with this update. We do also have our consultants from CSMP, Susan Lewin and Ryan Gurich, are with us via Zoom to show you a bit of a video and answer questions at the end. But as I said, happy to be here to provide an update. We were last before council in February. Next slide, please. And since then, staff have been working with consultants to refine the design of the addition and to fine tune and refine the budget for the project as well. So at this point, we've landed on a renovation that will include a standard single gymnasium at 8,000 square feet, dry change rooms, male and female, at 620 square feet, total 310 square feet each. Storage, which is always very important to us, 280 square feet. Administration and customer service renovation for a total of 2,100 square feet. A multi-purpose room at 730 square feet. The renovation of the existing preschool toddler room that will include a divider wall. So that space is currently about 2,000 square feet. We're going to put a divider wall in there and make it a much more functional, usable space that will be rentable for community groups. And we're also doing a renovation of the existing pro shop to a fully accessible universal washroom. That's a space that's underutilized, and we feel that we would better serve our building users by having that washroom available to them. Next slide, please, Ashita. Thank you. So one of the things that we had to give extensive consideration to was the abutment of the addition to this existing building. And snow load considerations on the roof became quite a topic and required a lot of consideration. And we also wanted to look at access to the pool during the renovation. We really wanted to be able to keep the pool open and not have to shut it down during the renovation. And it was determined that because of the tall volume of the ceiling height of the gymnasium, it needs to be attached to the building with a lower height buffer, and that also addresses the snow load issues. The consultants can answer, if you have specific questions about that, they can answer your questions on that. And the other piece that was really important to us was to make sure that we maintain the Sports Hall of Fame. And we make sure that the current displays are all able to be relocated and that the design includes space for growth of that of the Hall of Fame. And we have had some preliminary discussions with the Sports Hall of Fame about moving some of their displays. They know that the renovation is going to impact the way the Hall of Fame is laid out right now. But that was a consideration as well to make sure it remains a featured part of the building. Next slide, please. So this slide here just is a drawing. It shows you what the addition will look like. So you can see the gymnasium there, and then along to the side, the change rooms and the washrooms, as well as the hallway leading down. The yellow part at the top of the gym shows that, I wish I had a pointer, shows the, can you move it just to the right a little bit, Ashita? The yellow part. Yeah, right in there. So that shows the lower level where it is joined to the existing building. And again, that's that whole snow load issue. But it creates a nice interior atrium space, and you'll get a sense of what that could look like. The consultants have a little bit of a 3D video they'll take you through shortly. And then it just shows the preschool toddler room and how that'll be divided. The current pro shop space renovated, and the renovation of the administration office and the customer service counters. Administration space was always a part of this project. It was always included in the scope that there would be a need for new administrative space. But through discussions, it seemed more efficient, more useful at this time to renovate the space that we currently have. It's not laid out well for staff. It's awkward. They don't have a lot of room, and they just really don't have, it's not currently not set up for the number of staff that are currently in there. It wasn't planned. It wasn't built originally for the number of staff that are currently working in there. The movement of the customer service counter to the front of the building came about really for two reasons. One was certainly through the security audit. It identified that customer service needed to be a little bit more enclosed and secure. It's quite open right now. The counter at the SARC is very open, and the security audit recommended a more enclosed, secure space. And then certainly COVID showed us that it's works better for patrons coming in the building to have that customer service counter at the front of the building as they're entering. So that's what the plan looks like right now. Slide, please, Ashita. We did go through a value engineering exercise to try and identify some savings from the initial design and drawings. And we did identify a few things that will save us about $250,000. They include changing some of the doors, the types of doors, the glazing on the facade, removal of clear story and replacing it with corrugated metal on some of the exterior parts of the building, changing tiled washroom walls to painted black, moving a transformer supporting panels. So there is a transformer that provides energy to the solar panels. It exists, it's part of the existing building. It's going to need to be moved as part of the renovation. But the transformer and the panels are part of an agreement with a solar company, and we're in the process of determining whose responsibility it is to move that transformer. If it is indeed the town's responsibility, there is already a budget amount approved for the movement of that transformer. It won't be, it's not included in the budget for this project. It has to be done, but it was previously in another approved budget. A flat roof instead of an angled roof saves some money, and the removal of bleacher seating saves some money as well. And we had heard that from our user group consultations that they really wouldn't use the bleacher seating. It wasn't a big need for them. So we removed that to save some dollars as well. Next slide, please. We went through an exercise to determine what an annual operating budget might look like. And we took, sort of a weekly schedule, and we reached out to the user groups, the support groups, that kind of thing. And we said, what hours on a weekly basis, what hours would you like to rent this space? And we got that information from them. And then we also worked within our own team to look at what new programs do we want to start in this space, and what new activities and all that kind of thing. And we plotted that all out on a schedule, and then we were able to determine revenue and expenses related to those uses. And interestingly, when we plotted that all out, during prime time use, which is really Monday to Friday after school, like 4 to 10, and weekends, 7 a.m. to 4, we're already seeing a deficit. So town staff are saying, we want to program it during this time, yet sport clubs are saying we want it during this time. So we're already seeing a deficit during those prime times for this space. So we went through an exercise. We were able to determine revenues based on rentals and program revenue based on programs that the town would offer, and then related expenses, which as listed include utilities and waste, part-time staff, contracted staff, that type of thing. And through that exercise, we came to a net annual operating budget of 99,000. And that, will likely need to be refined, but it was a fairly detailed process in terms of laying out sort of a weekly, monthly schedule, hour by hour, what revenue are we going to generate, and then balancing the needs of what the town might want to use it for, and what the rental group, the sport clubs, and that type of thing. Next slide, please. So our Class C cost estimate for this project has come in at $11,125,000. This includes all of our hard and soft costs, including consulting, construction, furniture, fixtures, project management, unrecoverable HST contingencies, and the contribution to the Public Art Reserve. This is an increase of $2,950,000 from the existing approved capital budget authority of $8,200,000. And this increase will be funded by the Parks and Rec DCs and the growth and new reserve. Next slide, please. And next steps will include the preparation of the tender documents and the contract award, assuming it's within budget, over the summer and into the fall. And construction is estimated to take place between March 2023 and March 2024. So I'm going to turn it over to our consultants right now, who, as I said, are with us via Zoom. And they've got sort of a 3D video that they can fly you through and show you what the space will look like. Very high level. It's not a lot of detail, but it'll show you what the space will look like, interior and exterior.
Thanks, Lisa. Can you guys see my screen now? I can't tell.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, my name's Ryan. I'm a project architect from CSMP Architects. So as Lisa mentioned, I'm just going to give a bit of a face to the name here and just a quick 3D walk around of the project. So starting with the exterior. So this view right here is looking at the southwest corner of the new gym addition. So this block here is your new gym addition. In the background, you've got the roof of the existing pool and the existing childcare. So just zooming out here, we have modeled the existing building, and just really what we wanted to focus on was that pulling from some of the existing elements, create an addition that's sort of sensitive to the design language of the existing building, which really isn't that old. So the existing building sort of picks up these elements of these flat roofs and also these brick sort of axial walls. So when we look at our new addition, that's really what we're playing off of. We have this kind of cantilevered horizontal roof on top that would be a metal cladding, and then this brick sort of side walls framing the west face of the building, which looks onto the ravine. And that's really where we focus the opportunity for views. Is along this west facade where you have two clear glazing areas at the north and south part of the gym looking out to the ravine. And then this upper white portion is diffused glass, which I'll get to in a second once I go into the inside of the building. And then just looking here, we have a new multi-purpose room, which also has west glazing. And then this portion here is actually the existing end to the interior lobby space. And I just want to quickly mention this 3D model gives you a good sense of that setback that we needed to provide in order to prevent snow loading on the existing structure, which resulted in the areas that we have the change rooms and gym storage in, as well as that multi-purpose room and that sort of viewing multi-purpose type area, which I'll show you in the interior as well. So just moving to the interior. So I just want to, before we go in through the front doors here, I just want to note that this model is mostly white, and that's just because we're at early stages in the project and it's easier to kind of build a model that doesn't have the materials on it. So we're not necessarily proposing an all white building, and you'll see that a lot of the existing building is shown as white as well, which we're not proposing to change. This is mostly just to show the types of spaces that we're proposing. So once you enter into the main space of the building, so we have the existing arena to the right here, and then to the left, this is currently your pool multi-purpose room, which is now being turned into a service counter area. So you'll have an accessible transactional counter that people can come up to, and you'll have staff behind a glazed screen here. And then you see we have 3 workstations, and I'll actually go into the room here. You can see the pool space here that it's relating to. Again, this is the existing pool multi-purpose room. So you see the 3 workstations, again, the glazed screen here. There's an existing kitchenette in this room, which will be turned into the staff lunchroom. And then moving to the back here, we have 2 hoteling type workstations, and then a storage room in this space as well. So just moving out back into the main lobby space. So the next area that we're going to look at is the new admin area. So again, as Lisa mentioned, we're expanding this. So we're removing that existing large service counter that is currently in this area here, if you can see my mouse. And because that service counter is now being moved closer to the door. So this area purely becomes for staff office use. We try to maintain as much solid wall as we felt possible, and balancing with natural daylight into the office space. And the solid wall is to be used for the Hall of Fame, which is well used in this building as well. So just quickly going into the admin area. So you can see that there's open office space for 4 workstations and a hoteling. This furniture is a bit of a placeholder. We would be using Technion furniture sort of built for this space. So this isn't exactly an exact representation of what would be in this area. You also have 2 private offices along this area here. So there's one there. This is a storage room here with a printer in it, and then another private office here. This door leads to your existing washroom that's there already. We have a small kitchenette here, a new kitchenette in this area as well, with a fridge and microwave and sink. This door leads to the existing IT room. And then moving around the corner here, we have an exit out into the lobby. And then also, this is a small meeting room here as well. And then moving back out into the admin space and then back out into the main lobby area. So moving further down the main corridor here, we start to see sort of our first view into the new gym area and gym addition. So again, this is kind of your crush space, which acts as a viewing area, which I'll get into in a second. I just want to first take a quick look into the new multi-purpose room, which again has views out towards the ravine. So that's west-facing glazing. And then on this side here, we also have glazed screening in order to bring some shared daylight into that viewing area. So this multi-purpose room is meant to replace that one that is being turned into the service area. And then just walking down into this viewing corridor. So you have to step down or take the ramp down because our floor level is actually matching the existing pool corridor, which is about 0.4 meters below the building elevation elsewhere. So again, so this area is sort of your viewing area. It can also, we love to provide these types of spaces in buildings because they provide good spaces for sort of like could be training, like stretching. You could put a ping pong table in this area as well. So its use can be more flexible than just a viewing area. Once you move through these double doors here, you're moving along to the left here, the existing pool corridor, and to the right here is the new gym change room walls. And so just moving in through these double doors into the main gym space. On the right and left here, we have mirrored change rooms. So you can see in this space, it's just a change room. It's a pretty basic model. Each change room has a barrier-free washroom as well. And then back into the main gym space. So there would be a divider curtain down the center here. You can see the clear glazed windows on the north and south part of the gym that look out towards the ravine. And then above we have diffused glass to help bring some daylight into the space. This double door here is a required exit from the gym. And also provides some glazing at the south side of the gym. So then just looking back at the gym space. So the gym has one main basketball court down the middle as well as a volleyball court. You'll see though that there's 6 foldable basketball nets. That's because additionally there's 2 practice basketball courts. And volleyball courts, as well as 3 badminton courts with pickleball lines. And then moving back north here, you can see this glazed screen here is looking back into the viewing area. And you can see the multi-purpose room. And then just looking back at the gym as well with that north and south glazing looking towards the ravine. Okay, and that's it for the 3D walkthrough. Should I stop sharing now? Or do we want to hold
That's
on this?
fine. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And that actually concludes the presentation.
Great, thank you very much, Lisa. Maybe you could stay right there. I'd like to refer the presentation and on to item 9.1. I think we moved forward. Are there any, do we have a mover? Not yet. Recommendations on the floor. May I have a mover and a second? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson, questions, comments? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. It's always me, I guess, today. Through you, Madam Chair, to, I guess, Lisa, you were mentioning with the operating budget and you had collaborated with some organizations outside that would be kind of like your typical leagues that maybe are after school hours. Did you look at opportunities collaborating with schools? I know that I had recently had put the department in touch with a school who's looking at high performance activities and doing some collaboration non-peak hours. Did you look at that opportunity as well in this operating budget, or was that not something that was considered?
Through you, Madam Chair. We did look at those opportunities, especially those opportunities that would allow use of the space during those non-prime times. So afternoons, mid-morning, that type of thing. So we certainly are looking at those partnerships and opportunities to utilize the space as much as we can. Like I said, especially during those non-prime times, we're looking at obviously programs for older adults use the space during the day. We've even looked at, or we've spoken to some homeschooling groups where they want to bring their students into the gym during the day for some phys ed and that type of thing. So we are trying to find ways to utilize the space during the day.
Thank you, Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. And so that estimation in your operating cost was included in that. Okay, perfect. Another question I had just based on the virtual presentation, and I know this is very high level, so maybe I just missed something in my memory. My kids are a lot older now, but I remember the pool storage area used to be a place for kids who do birthday parties if they had pool parties. And so I don't know if that's what people still use it for now, but if we are replacing it with an administrative area, where would they be doing their parties? I would think that that's a big driver economically for the pool to have pool parties, and we could be taking some of that revenue away.
Lisa.
Through you, Madam Chair. So we have so the uses of the space where the customer service counter is now going to be is going into that new multi-purpose room that's attached to the gym. So I don't know if you saw that when Ryan went through the video, but there is a small new multi-purpose space, 720 square feet. It is meant to accommodate the existing use of that party room, that meeting space where customer service will be. So when we did the operating budget, we did not anticipate any new revenue for that space because we're really just moving from one space to another. But that would be the space that would be used for parties and that type of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. That explains it, because where are they going? We're losing revenue, but we're not. So that's good in that case. I just had a couple of things that were highlighted on the report. I'll just read them real quick. This unplanned need may impact future planned capital projects. However, the needs of this reserve are to be reviewed as part of the town's fiscal strategy driven by reserve management review scheduled to take place over the next few years. I am supporting and understanding the need that we need a gymnasium and such. And, we do have some unforeseen costs, and I do understand we do have reserves that are there in place specifically to build these things. But just with that paragraph and that sentence, and through you, Madam Chair, to staff, or I don't know, Ms. McDougall, if maybe you can kind of expand on that, if we should we be concerned about anything moving forward as we grow as a town, just from that statement that was there.
Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, if it's okay, I'd like to have our treasurer who's online watching.
Sure.
She's probably the most suitable to speak to that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Ms. Winray Van Kessel.
Through you, Madam Chair. So that statement is there because right now, when we look at the growth and new reserve, it's fairly underfunded the way we're contributing to it as of yet. We are looking at other strategies for ways to fund this reserve to ensure that it's suitable to manage the non-development charge portion of growth as we move forward. So this will be part of the work that we're planning on doing as part of the fiscal strategy, which includes looking at how reserves are funded and what reserve contributions are required over the longer term. So it may have an impact as we develop our next budget, but it's something that we are considering on a more longer term basis as well.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. I guess that answers the questions on everything I'd highlighted because it was a few areas within growth and new and the recreation. So I'll pass the baton over to my other colleagues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in support of increasing the budget authority to staff in order to get the gymnasium built. I don't believe that this is an option for us. I mean, our population is going to be increasing to 85,000 by 2051, I believe, was the last report I read. And so, this is the inflationary environment that we live in. And even without the inflation, the sudden inflationary environment that we find ourselves the last 6 months, costs are always rising. And so, it's not a matter of whether we should build it. We should build it. And so I'm in full support. To you, Madam Chair, to whoever wants to take it, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. It says here in the report, or Ms. Worth, that this is a Class C estimate. So we know the Class C estimate is within 15%. At what point will we get to a Class A estimate?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. McDougall. My apologies. Thank you.
Through Madam Chair, certainly if approved today, moving forward over the next couple of months, we would progress to that Class A estimate. It's part of the analysis to refine the design and certainly refine the cost estimate before it goes to tender.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you. That'd be all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's been a long time coming. As I've said in the past, I mean, this particular journey to build a gymnasium at the SARC began almost 5 years ago. It came out of the Parks and Rec Committee at that time's recommendation. And through this process, we've looked at various reiterations, and here we are tonight, hopefully to move forward. Through you to Ms. McDougall. Ms. McDougall, part of the rationale to build the second gym came from the Parks and Rec Master Plan, which within the plan talks about a service level of one gymnasium for every, I think it was 35,000 people at the time. In your conclusion, you certainly state that this project continues to be of a high need in the community. As we look at the revenue model going forward, are we fairly confident that it'll be well utilized going forward, and that it will address that service gap identified in the Parks and Rec Master Plan?
McDougall?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, it definitely is going to be well utilized. I have every confidence that it's going to be. Certainly, we've heard from our user groups for the lack of use that they are finding and lack of space. Our own programs, we're not able to expand the way we need to. And certainly based on population, we're already at the 60,000 mark of population. So we're already short of a provision for a gymnasium space. So this is certainly going to get us closer to on par and provide a bit of buffer for more space in the community.
Great, thank you. Councillor
Thank
Thompson?
you. So I think I saw the last population update was just a little over 64,000. So certainly it certainly is desperately needed. I think my only comment really is that, in hindsight, it would have been good had the gym been built in 2006. We know that the cost would have been considerably less. We've seen year over year the cost increase, and while the issue was brought forward 5 years ago, and my preference would have been that it would have been built then, it is what it is. We're here tonight. I think the need is there. It's been demonstrated over and over, and we need to move forward and build this gym. And so I'm in support of it. I think that, the only piece that I'm a little bit still hesitant on is the third recommendation, the 1% for the public art as per our OP. It's $110,000. Perhaps in this case, that would be something that we wouldn't move forward with in an attempt to further reduce the budget a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. Do we have a breakdown of the $3 million over, I want to say budget, but at least, I guess over budget, and I don't need it right now, but if if it can be provided before council, just a breakdown of where that additional $3 million came from, specifically if it's related to any of the changes that were made, either the roof or any of that, or even a breakdown of how much went into the actual gym compared to all the administration changes that we're doing. In terms of the operating budget, how confident are we that that is accurate? I also noticed that there's equipment in there. I don't know if equipment is part of operating or capital expenditure, but how confident are we with those numbers, and is staffing included in that?
Lisa, if you, yep.
Oh, there we go. We're fairly confident. I mean, we went through it at this point an extensive exercise. Like whereas I said, we mapped it out sort of week by week, month by month to look at the utilization of the space, and we assigned revenue to those times. We used rental rates that are currently on the fees and charges bylaw for the AFLC gymnasium in terms of what rate to use for rentals and that type of thing. We're a little bit unsure around weekend use and special events. This operating budget only includes 8 special events over a year. So, you know, just under 1 a month. So that was a conservative estimate, and a conservative estimate on that preschool room that is now going to be divided and is now available for rental where it never has been. That's a conservative estimate as well, because we didn't have a way to gauge external interest in that space. We only had a way to gauge internal interest. But with respect to the gymnasium, we had a better sense of external use because we've been engaged with our sport user groups and that type of thing. The operating budget with respect to equipment, it's small equipment, it's small non-capital floor cleaners and mops and those types of things required for daily maintenance. The operating budget with respect to facilities, I believe was done sort of on a percentage basis related to the square footage of that space. It does include some staffing, some additional part-time staffing are going to be required to operate this space. There's going to be cleaning required, there's going to be setup required, and there's going to be program instructors and that type of thing required to operate the space.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, out of the 201,000, do you know what the staff component is?
Not off the top of my head. We can get you that information.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the $250,000, I guess engineering. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. There was a discussion about, or there was one of them was, I can't find it, but one of them was the glazing and a change from glazing to something else. Through Madam Chair, could I get an explanation of that?
Lisa or Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. One of the additions or design ideas that came forward from the consultant had more clear glass. The glazing was clear. And based on the feedback we had from our user groups, they were concerned about that with the reflection on the gym floor. So as a cost saving measure, as well as to meet our community's interest, the consultants adjusted the glazing to reduce it to that diffused glass, which you'll see at the top of the gymnasium, which you presented today was at the top. So it provides light through, but not direct sunlight, creating glare on the gym floor. That is the reduction and how we came up with that.
Councilor Gallo?
I'm not in support of this, just because I think the costs are outrageous. I'm not debating the need, but if it does move forward and some of those items, especially even the bleachers, maybe a better explanation of why the user groups, why would we design them? And then the user groups not want them as part of that? I mean, if we have tournaments here, wouldn't that be an asset to the facility?
Yeah, exactly. Ms. Lisa, if you wouldn't mind.
Through you, Madam Chair. So what they told us was that they, on a regular sort of daily use, they would not use them. They come into the gym. They either, they have their bags, they put them on the floor and they go and do their activity. For a special event, there may be a need for seating, and we would bring in temporary seating. We would just set up rows of chairs that are already available in the facility. And they told us that that would suffice. It also saved us some space. It was very tight with the bleacher system that we were originally looking at. It took up a lot of space, and by removing it, it allows for a bigger buffer around the perimeter of the gym, which is helpful for safety and that type of thing. But they said on a regular basis, for practices and that type of thing, which would be the majority of their use, they would have no need for bleachers. They come in, they do their activity, they walk out.
So through you, was it the user groups initially, or was it staff that said we should have bleachers as part of the design?
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Certainly we anticipated and thought bleachers would have been a desirable piece. And again, we were in the midst when we were coming back to council. If it was a double gym, we anticipated tournament use. We anticipated bleacher interest. When through the cost analysis and certainly council's direction to reduce and go only with the single gym, tournament style play is much significantly reduced, the availability in that space being a single gym. So it became a point where if it's not a tournament site where we're not going to see significant tournaments in this place, that the bleachers were going to be underutilized for the space that they were taking up.
Okay. How about the a flat roof as opposed to an angled roof? We're talking about $250,000, and it seems like there's a lot of changes there, or not a lot of value. Let's say $250,000. Is the flat roof or the angled roof a design simply from an aesthetic point of view, not necessarily functional? Both will functional equally. Through you, Madam Chair.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly our consultants might from a technical perspective, but I believe it was more of a design to align with, as was presented tonight, you'd see the other roof lines are angled. If you look at the SARC, when it comes to a gymnasium, it certainly isn't needed because the roof height isn't something you're looking up. It's not part of something you're as an aesthetic feature. Subsequently, from a cost engineering perspective, it was more efficient to go with a flat roof in that area versus angled, simply for an aesthetic purpose. It certainly didn't serve a functional purpose.
Councilor Gallo?
The other one is the washroom walls painted block as opposed to tiled. Is the rest of the SARC, does it have tiles on it?
Ms. McDougall or Ms. Worth?
We're both going back and forth. Sorry, through Madam Chair. I think in certain areas it is painted block, and in certain areas it's tile. So for us, again, it was an opportunity to be looking at efficiency for the amount of space, and from even a cleaning perspective, whether it's tile or block, both are very user-friendly or maintenance friendly space designs, and yet one is cheaper than the other.
Paint is cheaper than tile. So, I mean, I guess as I said, I'm not supportive of this. I wasn't from the beginning. However, I can clearly see majority council is, and I'm torn between not supporting something, but if it's going to go forward, let's make it the best it can be. And this $250,000 for at least some of those things just don't really make sense for $11 million project. Once I see the breakdown and how much was linked to reconfiguring the SARC administratively compared to a new gymnasium, because I get the feeling that we're not only building a new gymnasium, we're doing some significant changes to the SARC and adding some significant spaces. I guess once I see that before council, I'll make my decision. But if we're going to be building this type of thing, and I'm not suggesting that saving 250,000 is a bad thing. But when you're in it, let's do it right. I'm not interested in taking apart things that may have value just for the sake of that. So that's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not in favor of this. I think we need 2 gyms for our population growth. So to me, 1 gym really isn't going to solve the problem. I think we need to figure out where we can put 2 gyms, even if it is 1 gym on top of another. I don't know what the breakdown is between the gym and the SARC space, but it really looks to me like it's at least as much a renovation of the SARC as it is to provide a gym. SARC is, I don't know, 2005, so the consultant is right, it's not very old. It may have been short-sighted when it was approved, but it's not very old. So to do a renovation like this, again, I don't know what the breakdown is, but I really don't think 1 gym is going to get us where we want to go. We want to have sports tourism. We want to be able to service our current and especially future population. So and the price tag is very high for 1 gym. So I just can't approve it, be in favor of it. I know the original roughing in the original gym or putting an original gym in place. What keeps getting missed is the fact that that was not going to be this kind of a gym. It was going to be a gym that would be a youth center, and a youth center that wouldn't require a lot of extra parking. So I think there has been some miscommunication about that, and really tired of having to say it over and over. Anyway, the way it stands now, I can't be in support, but I do have another concern apart from what I've mentioned, and this would go to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. It's the financial part. And it's the second paragraph. In consideration of the project's existing approved capital budget authority, and talking about the Parks and Rec DCs, we don't have a lot of money in that reserve fund or in the growth and new reserve. And it's quite possibly going to put us in a difficult position in the future, according to what's being said in the report. So could Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel just expand upon what's been said in the financial implications?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So what we're indicating in here is there's a lot of planned use for this reserve, but much of what's happening with these 2 reserves is for projects that have yet to be approved or take place, or some of the projects have yet to start. So there is an opportunity through the budget process to reevaluate the projects and the timing of the projects as to which ones we would like to move forward with when. So it's a matter of aligning the timing of the projects with the timing of the growth.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And what about, I think it says somewhere in here that we might end up going out to the tax base if we don't have enough money in our reserves. Perhaps I've misstated that, Ms. Van Kessel.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, do we?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the tax levy would be impacted only through the contributions to the growth and new reserve. So the growth and new reserve is a tax-funded reserve. It gets funded through the cash to capital contributions on an annual basis and some distribution of the surplus. We are looking at how that reserve is funded, and that's going to be part of our reserve management strategy that we're working on and should come forward next year.
Great, thank you,
Yes.
Councillor Gardner.
Yes, because it does say that in 2031, this is going to be, the Parks and Rec development will be, DC will be in a deficit position. You know, I'm sorry, there's just too much that concerns me about this. I cannot be in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Are there any other questions or comments to the item? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Gallo.
That's okay. Is the intent, through you, Madam Chair, that the users for the gym would have access to the facility space in the pool area?
Ms. McDougall or Ms. Rath?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, are you, just for clarification, are you referring to the change rooms? Would they have room or access to it? Sorry, then through you, Madam Chair, to answer that, we, in surveying our user groups, it was not deemed necessity to have showers. Thus, we've designed it more as a location or an area to change in. Subsequently, that is what you're seeing, a much more simplified changing area. So we do not see a need to cross the hallway into the pool area for our user groups within the gym, unless there's some special arrangement that we're making and that exception is being made. But ultimately, we see the operations of the gymnasium and the pool almost independent of each other with some mild crossover.
Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. And who is the user group?
Ms. Rath or?
Through you, Madam Chair. So there was a variety of user groups that we consulted for this project. The local volleyball club, the basketball clubs, even karate for tournaments and that type of thing, Sport Aurora. So we consulted with a variety of user groups that would have an interest in using this space either on a regular basis or a special event basis.
And through you, Madam Chair, they didn't want showers in there? I find that very hard to believe, especially for basketball. I find it very hard to believe.
Ms. Rath?
Yeah, they said they come dressed, they do their activity and they leave.
I just, I think we're putting my view, I mean, it's so far down the line, doesn't really matter, but I'll say it anyway. We're putting a lot of emphasis on user groups and I appreciate their input, don't get me wrong. But they could also have it wrong. And I don't think it's the right approach to simply take what they want or don't want. We're building for a community here. And personally, I would have explored that a lot more, whether or not showers would be necessary in there. I've seen them in many different facilities years ago when I played basketball. Nonetheless, it's pretty standard. But I'm just putting it out there that we appreciate user groups input, but it's not the be all and end all. And we really have to take a town of Aurora, more global approach to when we build these types of things.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson.
Nobody else for the first time?
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor? Okay.
Through you to Ms. McDougall. Ms. McDougall, in February, you came forward with a report that touched upon the fact that the budget would need to be increased from $8.2 million to 11.3. And some of the questions that we've heard tonight were brought up then, and you sort of addressed the reasoning why the $8.2 million, that placeholder or estimate, was too low. I was wondering if perhaps you could speak to it again, why the 8.2 was not a sufficient number and why you felt it was more going to be the $11.3 million as per that February report and the discussion we already had.
Ms. McDougall, if you wouldn't mind commenting.
Certainly through you, Madam Chair. Certainly with regards to the change. So the evaluation and the 8.2 came to you, I believe it was in 2020, certainly with the cost evaluation per square foot. At that time, it was evaluated to be closer to $400 a square foot, 300, some cases $300 a square foot. Today's standards have an impact on that. Today's standards are showing closer to $500 a square foot for new build. Renovations could still be in the area of 350 to 400. So that's part of it. With regards to the square footage, what was presented to council was a high school size gym, which was what you approved. We've moved forward with the high school size gym in keeping in mind that the runoff was important to maintain. We spoke with our user groups to ensure that the square footage in that runoff was to meet minimum standards. And subsequently, with that, that's what's landed us closer to the 8,500 square or 8,000 square foot gymnasium. Still a high school sized footprint of the footing and the design. Just looking at some of my notes, certainly with regards to admin space and washrooms to ensure we have the appropriate building code requirements, that had to be considered. And certainly in a few years back, there was a much higher level design, didn't accommodate the evaluation of the full pool and facility, the number of people coming through the facility. So we've found that we needed to ensure we had a certain number of bathrooms to accommodate. And then I would also, and just to point out, in the original estimate, admin space and multipurpose spaces were always part of our goal in this project, including the approval you gave us for an 8.2 million. There was always intention to be multipurpose and admin spaces. We went the route of going the renovation route with a goal of trying to mitigate some of those costs, which we were subsequently afforded to if we could move the customer service. So we've done a flip-flop, moving the multipurpose room into what would be a void in space. Because of that snow load, we're now making use of it. And it also afforded us to move the customer service to the front of the building. So there's been a variety of pressures that ultimately have resulted us in this the cost estimate and today's dollar. Unfortunately, it is what it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Any other comments or questions? I think Councillor Gartner, do you have your hand up again?
Thank you, I do. Just a comment. Should we be wrong about the need for showers? Having been a user of the pool and the change rooms, they really can't accommodate more than the number of people that they have now. When they're busy, they're just jammed. So we need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Any other comments or questions at this point? I just wanted to state that I know that the cost is what it is. I'm in favor of it, the need for our community, and a couple of the things I think are really exciting or very, very positive is not only having another gym that we need absolutely very, very badly, it's having the reception of the customer service at front from a security perspective. It is the right thing to do, and I like that there's a little bit of protection for them as well, for our customer service facing individuals. So I was really happy to see that. I also, and I appreciate the saving efforts. I know we're trying to do our best, but Councillor Gill mentioned a flat roof. I'm more concerned about, flat roofs or sometimes have or could be problematic from a weather perspective. I just want to make sure whatever we do there is the right thing in the long term. Because, and I could be wrong, technology has changed, but if we think an angled roof will help us long term in terms of repair, I'd appreciate understanding that investment for sure. And I'm sorry, I wrote a couple of notes here, but I think overall I'm very, and the bleachers, I know you're saying we don't need them and maybe from a space perspective, but I'm thinking about tournaments and competition, and I guess I'm old fashioned thinking, left some bleachers and river to cheer teams on and so on. But overall, it is, we expected this price, and I'm looking forward to hopefully it's coming through from perspective to fruition. Apologies if I'm, as a chair, shouldn't be talking too much, but All those in favor at this point? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for the presentation. Well done. Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair, I would just respectfully suggest that we either take our health break early.
Yes.
Or if we think that we can fit in one of the other ones quickly, like maybe 9.9 or 9.8, like if we think that we can just kind of get through a couple of them really quick, that we don't think that we're going to really have much of a conversation, we can do that before we go on a health break.
Perfect.
But otherwise, I would suggest we go on a health break now because the next one's probably going to be
Take a time. It's going to take
be a
time.
lot. So
You want to try 9.8?
we can try 9.8 and see how it
Positive one?
goes.
I hope so. It looks positive and hopefully not too much discussion. May we move forward for that item 9.8? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Gartner, all in favor to move that up? Perfect. We're talking about item 9.8. And may I have a mover and a seconder for this item? Mayor Marakis, Councillor Gilliland, any comments, questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries.
I say we try another one.
Perfect. Let's try another one.
9.9.
9.5?
9.9.
Oh, 9.9. Absolutely. 9.9. Think so? Okay, item 9.9. Can I have a mover and a seconder to move this forward? Councillor Kim, you have a seconder to move item 9.9 forward? Councillor Thompson? All right, item 9.9 is on the floor. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Gilliland? Mayor Marakis, comments, questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I think we should. Do we take a chance or do we take an early break?
No.
Take it.
We've got 10 minutes.
Okay, 9.5. Councillor Gardner, you good with 9.5?
I'm fine with 9.5.
Perfect.
Okay,
And we have a
we're
second.
bringing it forward.
Bringing it forward, I mean, yeah. So Councillor Gardner is good bringing it forward. 9.5. Mayor Marakis. All those in favor to bring it forward for discussion? Okay. Motion carries. Item 9.5 is on the table. Restricted acts, lame duck. Mover and seconder. Would someone like to move this forward? Mayor Marakis, Councillor Kim. Comments, questions? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Just to be clear in terms of my understanding of what this is, first off, is me through you to the clerk. Is this something that we do every time?
Mr. Clerk?
Through Madam Chair, yes, it's something we do every time.
And it would be considered a lame duck. Oh, where that term came from. Anyways, if a majority of us would definitely not be on council next term, and the date of which we would know that is the end of the nomination period. At that point, we would know whether we would be in a lame duck or not. Is that correct? Through you, Madam Chair.
Clerk?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that's the first point of the lame duck period that we would know. It's also possible after Election Day, but on August 19th at 2 p.m. at the end of nominations, we would know if we're lame duck.
And if we're not lame duck, is there still an opportunity or for this to take place between the end of this term and the start of new term, or once we've determined what? Well, yes, because after the elections, we still may not have. Let's say if the majority of us rerun, but the majority of us don't get reelected, there's that 2 weeks or so between the end of the term and the beginning of the new term. In that circumstance, this would kick in. So you mentioned.
That is correct. From October 24th to November the 15th, the first day of the new term, council could be lame duck if not enough members were reelected.
Okay. And I guess the other question is, any of the items that are being delegated to the CAO, would any of them be deemed, okay, first of all, does the CEO already have delegated authority to deal with, because most of them are procurement, spending, that kind of thing, signing contracts. Does the CEO already have delegated authority for the items that are listed in this bylaw?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, the CEO does not have that delegated authority yet.
And any of those through you, Madam Chair?
Mr. Clerk, do you have an idea?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's my understanding is that this is separate and above the existing delegation of authority bylaw.
So none.
Okay, so two scenarios. If it becomes a lame duck council, then this kicks in, or between those 2 weeks of the end of election and beginning of the new term. Reading them, none of them, in my opinion, would be urgent. I would find it odd if the CA would engage in any of those, for either the 2 weeks or we're still sitting here as council members at the end of August until the end of the term. I guess it's a fail safe, but and I'll agree to it, but it could be so rare that something like this would take place. And if it does, I believe sitting here, it would take a lot of explanation of why that would have happened.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the clerk, Mr. Duran. Mike, you were here for the last bylaw brought forward. When I look at bylaw to bylaw, what are the changes between the last one that we put forward as the lame duck provision and this one that you are proposing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, or excuse me, Madam Chair. Essentially it's the same bylaw with the delegation of authority bylaw that was brought forward by the town solicitor, but this term of council lessened what we needed to ask council for in terms of delegation of authority. So there's a few clauses from the bylaw from 2018 that are no longer in there, but essentially it's the same.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Then my suggestion would be, while I've had an opportunity to look at and compare the bylaw from 2018 to 2020, is perhaps in advance of council next week or whenever you're going to bring the bylaw forward, is to provide a track change version or highlight those changes, because there are some differences in the amounts and a couple clauses, but for the most part, it is exactly the same. And I'm sure that if I looked at 2014, it would probably be along those same lines as well. But perhaps that would address some of the concerns, if there are any, by members of council, if they saw what was previously passed over the years, as well as what's being proposed this time around.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. That's good. Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. To you, I guess, to Mr. Clerk, what happens if this is not a lame duck council? Is this just put aside? Certainly the first part, not the 2 weeks in between, but the first part.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, council retains the authority in the municipal act, so the restricted acts do not apply. And I believe there's a provision in the bylaw that states that if council is not lame duck, the bylaw has no authority.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Great.
Councillor
Thank you so
Gardner?
much. That's all. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
We've
All
got
right,
5
seeing
minutes.
none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to just take our break. Nope. We have 7 minutes. We're good. So thank you, everyone. Take a break. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much. For all your help. Thank you. I don't think I'm doing. Oh, I'm so sorry.
right, council, we're back. We are on 9.2. Town of Aurora official plan review, draft official plan amendment. We have a presentation to be provided by David Riley and Paul Lowe's, principals of SGL Planning and Designing.
Mr. Mayor, would this be the time to ask for a 5-minute extension on the 10 minutes? Or 2 10 minutes and 10 minutes?
Councilor, you could, I mean, but ultimately I think that it is 10 minutes and 5 minutes. We would have to waive procedural bylaw to allow it for everyone. To be honest with you, I'd be recommending not to, but if we get to a point where you've had your discussions and you feel that you need more time, then at that time, I'm sure that I'll inform Councillor Humphreys if she does come back and takes the chair back to allow for that discussion once we get to that point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, did you have, or you, okay, I cleared it up. Is that, okay, thank you. So we'll go with the presentation. Mr. Riley, Mr. Rose.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to be here this evening. For everybody watching, my name is David Riley from SGL Planning and Design. And Paul Lowe's is joining me here. He'll be available to answer any questions, but I'll be running through the presentation for everyone. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Slideshow, play from start. All right. So thanks, everyone. We're here to discuss the draft official plan amendment that has been put on the agenda and hopefully going to be released for public comment over the next several months to receive even more feedback on top of all the feedback that we've already received. And I'm going to attempt to go through the official plan amendment or the OP in 10 minutes. So we'll see how I do for that. But I just wanted to provide a quick overview of where we've been and where we are today. And as you can see on this slide, I won't spend too much time talking about it, but we've started in 2020 with the phase 1 background review. We moved on to the background studies and discussion papers, onto the policy directions in phase 3. And all throughout these phases, we've had several points of community consultation, stakeholder consultation, touch base with council, and of course, the various committees, leadership team, the community steering committee, and the technical steering committee. And we're in phase 4 now, which is the actual official plan amendment. So what you have before you is actually the official plan as it is today, with a strikeout for any text that we propose to be deleted, underline for any new text that we propose to add. Of course, because this is a much easier way to read an amendment than an actual amendment, which is, delete policy 321 and replace with this. So we thought this would be the best way to represent what we're proposing to the public. And we've had, several meetings on this, and we propose to have more public consultation as we move forward to, ultimately adoption in the early part of 2023 and eventually regional approval. And as you know, we've really been kind of following really closely behind York Region and their process, not to advance ahead of the regional official plan, but really as close as we can following them. And I think Aurora is probably one of, if not the most advanced municipality that way in terms of updating its official plan. It's definitely one of them in York Region. So this is just a graphic showing that we've had many points of consultation, many meetings with stakeholders, public open houses, many attendees at these events. The vision survey garnered a lot of response, and of course, over 2,000 unique visitors to the project website. And all of this has really helped form the vision for Aurora, which is reflected in the official plan. And so now I'll get into a little bit about the official plan update. So of course, starting with the vision, we've updated this to reflect the input that we've received from the public. And that includes updates to the fundamental principles of the official plan, referencing complete communities, affordable housing, climate change. Certainly, these are topics that we've heard, many comments on. Recognizing that Aurora's stable neighborhoods are an asset to the town, but of course also focusing that there will be some gentle intensification within the neighborhoods in the form of secondary residential dwelling units, but also on the fringes of the neighborhoods. We really are focusing on community facilities and the idea of community hubs and co-locating those community facilities. And one of the items that we talked about tonight certainly highlights the importance of the many users of community facilities. So that's something that we're thinking about, and we have policies in the official plan, and really focusing on connectivity of parkland and open spaces in the natural heritage system within town. The town structure and growth management. So we have created a new schedule, which is the first schedule in the official plan that you'll see. And this is really looking at the overarching elements of the town structure. So, the residential areas, the promenade, the employment areas, natural heritage system, all of those things. You can kind of see we'll see it a little bit bigger on the next slide, but really, we brought all of these elements up front in the official plan. They're already there, just kind of buried in I believe it was the growth management section, but really wanted to talk about this is the town. These are the various components of the town at a high level. This is what we're doing here. And then we get into the policies and the land use designations. These policies in the town structure chapter and growth management, we're talking about directing growth to strategic growth areas. And of course, these are the promenade and the major transit station area, secondary plan, the regional corridor along Yonge Street, and the local corridors along Bayview, Leslie, and Wellington outside of the promenade. There's a focus on gentle intensification within existing residential neighborhoods, which I mentioned, on the fringes of neighborhoods, but also the secondary residential dwelling units. And we've, of course, updated growth projections, the intensification target of 45% and the designated greenfield area density target of 55 persons and jobs per hectare. And there's just a larger view of the new of the town structure schedule, and you can see all of those elements that I was referring to. We have really bolstered the policies on urban design and placemaking in the official plan, really by creating a chapter that focuses on town-wide policies. There was a lot of really good policies that were applying to just some of the secondary plan areas. So this new chapter really brings out some of those policies, but bolsters them with some other information and feedback that we received through the process so far. And the policies are really organized by public realm policies. So these are the streets, the pedestrian environment, views, lots and blocks, and all of these elements that form part of the design of our public realm. And then the private realm. And so we're talking about built form on private lands, parking design, how neighborhoods should be designed. And then we have a policy here to direct the town to create a public art master plan and cultural master plan. And this is really to tie on a town-wide basis, some of these elements that we are seeing in certain parts of town, but really thinking about it from a town-wide perspective. So let's talk about green community and Greenlands policies. So in terms of green community, we have policies certainly improving the existing policies to deal with climate change and adaptation. We have taken out some of the detailed policies on the green development and design standards. And this is because we know the town's working on updating those standards. And in order to have those standards live separately and evolve over time, it's best not to have them right in the official plan, because otherwise you'd be constantly amending the official plan. So instead we refer to them, and then the standards live separately. We've referenced the region's climate change action plan, and we've introduced new policies on urban forestry management, excess soils, all these matters that we've discussed. And on the green lands, so we have policy updates to reflect updated provincial and regional policies, many definition updates for some of the features. We have a new policy for requiring buffers to be determined through site-specific studies, through development applications, through either an environmental impact study or hydraulic evaluation. And then one note that I wanted to bring up on the environmental protection area designation is that this is still, we're doing actually currently, as we're going out for public release, we're still doing a deep dive on actually refining the boundaries of the environmental protection area designation. And this really stems from a lot of line work, issues that we've seen. So on the maps that you have now, it's as existing, the environmental protection area designation, and we're actually working on refining that as we go. And of course, we'll release those maps for more public consultation, but it's looking at parkland, for example. A lot of lands within parks, be it private open space, public open space, should be designated environmental protection areas, and vice versa. Sometimes the environmental protection area designation covers an area that's actually a sports field. And so we're really cleaning up those lines, and it's actually quite a bit of work to do that. But we have North-South Environmental on our team that's really looking at the environmental side of things. And then we'll be looking at, when it comes from the parks, also delineating a little bit the difference between active parkland and passive parkland. In terms of housing, we've updated housing policies really to focus on those missing middle housing options. Those low grade related housing forms, but really that have multiple units within a building. Updated affordable housing targets, in line with what's out there from the region. And we've clarified and simplified, we hope, the policies on the various housing types, really the difference between multi-unit housing, grade-related housing, and then that all ties to the land use designations. And what we've done in the land use designations, and you'll see this on the map, we've hopefully, the idea is really to simplify what exists right now, which is a bunch of different secondary plans with their own land use designations, and for residential land use designations, for example. And we've taken those and we've brought them all into the parent official plan that we have before us this evening. And we've really tried to streamline them. And a lot of the detail, if there is additional detail, specific to, certain density requirements, those still exist within the secondary plans. However, in the parent document, we now have these overarching land use designation policies. And we're really also focusing on permitting denser housing forms on the edges of stable neighborhoods. So, where it might be appropriate, subject to certain criteria and appropriate transitions, for example. Here you can see the land use plan. Again, this is still, of course, a work in progress, as I mentioned, with the environmental designations, the parkland. But you can see a simplification in terms of the legend on the right as compared to the existing legend, which has many different boxes with different colors applying to different areas of the town. So we hope we're heading in the right direction there. With respect to economy and employment lands, we've made changes to reflect updated provincial policies and regional policies on employment conversions. So of course, we can have employment conversions outside of a municipal comprehensive review process. So we need to make sure that the town's policies are up to date and set out criteria for considering those conversions. We've simplified the land use designations. So because of a change in provincial policy in the way that designated greenfield area used to include employment lands. However, that's not the case anymore. Employment lands are just employment lands. And we have simplified the designations. We've got a business park designation as well as a general industrial area designation. So this is, reflective of what's on the ground and what's planned. And we've introduced a new mixed use designation to reflect some of the designations that exist within the secondary plans, but also applying that to the promenade and a major transit station area as an area where we are really going to see more mixed use. And of course, the Aurora Promenade and Major Transit Station Area Secondary Plan update is also included within the document in Chapter 9. We've included the major transit station area boundary. We've updated the height schedule. We haven't increased the heights in terms of, the 7 stories, but what we've done was we've looked at the major transit station area in itself and kind of taken that area and applied what we thought would be appropriate heights, and that includes transitions to lower rise areas nearby. And we've really tried to simplify the policies and, get rid of some of the detail that was more almost at a zoning level detail within the Promenade and MTSA, really to kind of promote a little bit more flexibility in terms of, encouraging redevelopment, but also adding policies to make sure that the redevelopment is appropriate in terms of a transition to the lower rise areas. So next steps will be, seeking comments and feedback through the summer and the fall. It actually works well, with the election coming up in a way, to have this time to have the document released to public, have the time to receive the comments, make the changes that we need. As we said, doing that deeper dive into the environmental policies and the parkland mapping. And then the plan is to bring back the official plan for town council adoption in the early part of the winter next year. And then, of course, then it would be off to the region for approval. So thank you, everyone. I know that was a lot of information in a short period of time to cover a massive document. And Councillor Gardner mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, of course, we've had, this is a big project, and it's still ongoing. We're here ready to seek more feedback from council, then the public and all stakeholders. And this is a really good, I think, point in time for touching base with all of you tonight and kind of setting expectations forward. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation and update this evening. It was fantastic. Council, at this point, we have the recommendations on the floor. If I can have mover to that. And any questions, comments? I'd like to move this forward. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, comments, questions? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to staff. First, I want to thank the comments that were mentioned about the open private space designation, because I know we had conversations offline. You had mentioned a bunch of different motions that were presented by various council members that were taken consideration. So just to confirm, is that something that you can confirm that you are going to include and look at moving forward with this official plan?
Mr. Riley?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland. Yes, absolutely. And as I mentioned, it's a lot of a technical exercise, really, mapping exercise, just to see what's on the ground. Certainly, there's many parks in Aurora, and a vast network of natural heritage system and features, and just we want to make sure that we get it right. But we didn't want to hold releasing the rest of the document because we think that we can still get a lot of feedback there, and still work towards updating that mapping and then releasing that when it's available for again further comment and review.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And just on the topic of parks, there was quite a large section there of various changes. And there are some descriptions of establishing parks, placemaking, neighborhood parks, public parklands, and various uses and such. And I didn't see any mention of anything that pertained to a use such as a dog park. I know we're at an extreme deficit, and I don't know if we take these things literally by word and we make comments such as, passive use or use such as events and public art and outdoor games. but yet there's really no suggestion that, you know, maybe some of these uses could be for servicing, you know, the community as dog park areas, because from what I'm seeing here, it's really opening up some doors to opportunity for specific uses on other protected lands that wouldn't be kind of, say, high traffic. So maybe, you know, it might be more appropriate to add, you know, that kind of a use. Is that something that you would consider? Is that necessary to put that language in there to kind of emphasize that that use is something that would be encouraged?
Mr. Riley, your thoughts on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland, I think that's a really interesting point. You know, typically that level of specific use sometimes or often we don't have that level of detail within an official plan. It's something that we could look at mentioning, but I believe the town is also working on updating the Parks Master Plan, and you know, it might be something to address through that process, and certainly making sure that the official plan cross-references the Parks Master Plan, you know, and just having those synergies between the two documents.
Madam Chair, if I could just add to what David had said, that I agree with that, but we wouldn't normally identify in official plan the specific areas for dog parks. As David said, we identified those that those would be a logical use to be included in parks, particularly those that we're going to identify as passive parks. But we wouldn't identify specific parks for that use. That would be the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that would provide more detail than the actual design of the parks. But we certainly could mention it in the official plan. So I just wanted to add that more to what David had said.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lowe's. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate that, you know, maybe it's an outside the box specific term. When I'm looking at a report on page 190, and it has quite a detail of specific spaces in there saying opportunities for temporary use, such as events, public art, outdoor games, play structures, interactive exhibits, pop-up patios. So there is a lot of specific within respect to parks and place making and destinations. And then it goes on to other things with other specifics. So I just didn't want something like that to fall through the cracks as far as a suggestive possible use. So I know we do have a report back at council right now. We've had conversations about the public master plan, but we also have staff coming back to work about identifying areas. And I was really attracted to some of the separations of like, for instance, situations, permitted active parks and outdoor recreational uses within the Oak Ridges Moraine, which could make sense if we're at a real high deficit of area and you have a low impact use. I thought it was interesting that this was an added clause. So that would be my comment. Just a comment.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland.
I do have
Sure.
just a couple more things, if I may. The connectivity in the MUP, most council knows that I advocate very strongly for connectivity, especially between Bathurst and Bathurst and Yonge Street. And I feel that the south, west and north side of Aurora seems to be rather underserviced with this connectivity. So I know you do speak to, you know, putting that as far as our shared vision and what we want to service, but does it also speak to the underserviced residential areas that lack this connectivity, or is it specifically to new builds moving forward?
Mr. Lowe's and Mr. Riley?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland. You know, with active transportation, we tried to really bring that forward, you know, in the official plan, of course, creating the active transportation schedule. You know, certainly we have policies to make sure that, you know, new areas are well connected, but, you know, the intent for sure is that the existing communities, you know, we don't forget about those, and we make sure that, you know, there's improvements where required to, you know, to have those connections. We also, you know, emphasize connections through active transportation to transit, you know, connecting different parts of town to the Aurora GO station, and through, you know, trails, you know, cycle routes. But, you know, it's a great comment, and we'll just, you know, make sure that you know, we take another look at the policies and make sure that we make sure we're not forgetting about anywhere in town, essentially.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland?
I appreciate that. That's exactly the point I was trying to make. I didn't want them to get forgotten. Another question I had was about traffic studies. I'm not so sure if this is from Mr. Ramuno or yourself, but traffic study has been kind of a bone of contention for a lot of people in the Old Aurora area, especially as we're developing a lot more in the major transit area, promenade, and a lot more density. And since the last official plan, some residents felt we didn't have a sufficient study. So I just wanted to know what you're doing now and what we're changing in that traffic study to make it more in-depth prediction for the future, and we're planning the proper way.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Riley. My apologies.
Oh, that's okay. Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland. That's a great question. And so part of our consulting team is a company called AECOM, and they're engineers. But on our study, one of their main focuses through the official plan review is transportation and transit. And one of the when we started working on the Promenade and MTSA secondary plan, we realized that, okay, through the previous work that had been done, we need to make sure that, and I think this is what you're referring to, Councillor Gilliland, that, the transportation network is there to support that increased density. So AECOM has done an analysis. They are actually just wrapping it up. And I actually just today received their second draft, which I need to send to the town, and everyone needs to review there. But it's really just to make sure that, the network can accommodate these increased densities. Generally, it can, is what I can say is what it's finding. But, it's really just to make sure that we have the policies in there to make sure that as new development, so we'll use this traffic study to make sure that the secondary plan policies and the official plan broadly includes policies to make sure that as new development comes in, we are, maintaining, a level of service that needs to be provided.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And do we have an estimation of when we would receive a draft of that, Council?
Mr. Riley?
I can actually send it to town staff right now. But and as when it will be reviewed for council, I don't see why there would be a delay, but I'm sure town staff will want to review it, the various departments, planning, transportation. But it's coming your way, that's for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Sorry, I've got a few things here, and I still have some time. One question I had, and I had a conversation with the planning department a few days ago, was you were mentioning a lot about affordable housing. We've had this conversation quite a bit in the last few years. We know that we need to provide some mixed housing, and I believe that's what's in your plan. However, I just wanted to kind of ask about kind of the terminology. I mean, affordable housing is a very subjective term as to what that actually means. And I think a new term that's been flown around is attainable housing. It's just a different kind of language. I didn't know if that was something that you would consider. Often we get in conversations and debates about what affordable is, but yet attainable just, I think, might be something that'd be more appropriate, just as a comment. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but that would be a comment that I would make if that was something you would think was appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland.
One more thing. You mentioned quickly some green initiatives. I was really happy to see that. I understood that you left it open-ended with the green development standards. I understand why, because that's going to be a floating and moving document. But in your presentation, you did also reference the Regent Climate Adaptation Plan, although we're in the midst of doing our own climate adaptation plan. So I'm just wondering why we wouldn't reference to our own.
Mr. Riley or staff?
I'll start through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland. That's a great point. We do want to make sure we want to make sure that we refer to documents as their names of documents change sometimes, and we want to make sure that everything is up to date. But I think that's a really good point, just to make sure that we capture through policy, even if the document doesn't have a final name yet, or maybe it does, that we are capturing any initiatives that the town is putting forward. I think that's a good point.
Thank you. Councilor Gilliland.
One more,
Sure.
thank you. You mentioned also in there in your cultural heritage landscapes, so this is a little bit more in-depth time that you were talking about with improvements, and there was like a new clause there. Would this also speak to heritage properties? Would it be a separate designation? I'll give you an example. Sometimes we have trouble to where we have a heritage designated property, and you'll be an owner and you plant a tree. It's a brand new tree and it's 2 years old. They sell it. A new person comes by. Maybe they want to take that 2-year-old tree, but because it's a designated property, this tree is now designated as heritage, but it's not necessarily a heritage tree, just a 2-year-old tree. And it might just be in a spot that's just bad, or it's just not, for whatever the reason is, they want to remove it, replace it with something else, but then they'd often have to come back with this long drawn presentation to council because it's on a designated property of heritage. So does this cultural heritage landscape speak to that? Is that something that's separate that we're focusing on now, or am I just totally off course here?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland. That's it could be, that's the answer. So cultural heritage landscapes really, so our recommendations here are really for the town to undertake future studies to examine whether potential landscapes that have been identified by, I believe, the town's heritage committee in the past should be carried forward as cultural heritage landscapes. And part of a cultural heritage landscape study is really to understand and identify specific criteria that contributes to the heritage landscape. And that doesn't always need to be plantings in terms of landscape features. It could also be like a low stone wall, for example. I'm just thinking of one in Mississauga where a cultural heritage landscape has been identified along a road where commonality along this road is low stone walls. And so that's an element that is kind of governed by that. But in that case, it has nothing to do with the land, the actual plants. So a cultural heritage landscape study, if there's something about the plantings or the vegetation that warrants or that contributes to the cultural heritage landscape, then it might be covered in that. But generally, it's a little bit broader than specific trees, is my comment.
Thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, because there was a clause in there that said the town shall undertake a cultural heritage landscape study. So those are big words. And so I just wanted a little clarity on kind of like what that meant. I just have one final question, and I'm sorry, I don't want to take up all this time, but I like to have these questions. Encroachment policies, maybe I missed something, but are they completely removed? Because I didn't really understand if anything was actually replaced by that. That's my final question. It was on page 133 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Mr. Riley?
I'm just gonna, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gilliland, I'm just gonna have to just take a look at that. Sorry, could you just elaborate
Repeat
for me?
if you don't mind, Councillor Gilliland, if you can repeat the question.
Where like maybe specifically where encroachment in relation to?
Sorry, I just saw that everything was crossed out. So that was like, was that an indication that you're removing all that? It was 9.11 on page 133 of 624. So I'm assuming that because it's all crossed out, that means that's being removed. Am I wrong in that assumption?
Do you see that, Mr. Riley, where it's all crossed out?
I do see this. So this is in the Promenade Secondary Plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the Promenade Secondary Plan section, and this would have been okay, so this is one of those examples of a policy where we thought was quite detailed for an official plan or secondary plan level and really should be a little bit more, it should be addressed really at the zoning level. And this is one, sorry, Paul, go ahead. I know you're.
Yeah, I
wanna jump
might
in there.
add, we also moved some of this, David, to the urban design section, so that broader urban design policies. In a couple areas where we thought there's some good policies in a specific section, we moved them to that urban design section. So some of it's a little too detailed, as David said, but other portions I believe we moved to the urban design section.
Oh yeah, that's right, Paul. And actually, I see that specific one that's crossed out in that section we were just referring to. It's almost fully carried over. Well, not fully. It's been simplified a little bit, and just. But the awnings, outdoor cafes, and seating areas, for example, is still in there. In the
Okay, great.
urban design policies.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. I know I saw Councillor Gartner and then Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gartner, if you could.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this very extensive report. Could, following on what Councillor Gilliland was saying about affordable versus attainable housing, we've had affordable housing at 25% new development should be affordable. We've had that in our OP for, well, more than 10 years. And we haven't had much success at that. I'm wondering if that really is more of a provincial and even federal mandate. I'm not sure what the municipality can do about that. I think that's more up to government. I'd like your feedback on that. But also with respect to the use of attainable, it's providing hopefully relatively inexpensive land, housing, and where people can progress to other forms of housing if they want. So I think with what's in the report with respect to the intensification, I think we're speaking more of attainable housing than affordable. So could I have some feedback on that, please?
Mr. Riley.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gardner. So your first point, in terms of requiring the provision of affordable housing, there's certain areas where that can be done. For one, if the town implements a community planning permit system, then they can implement inclusionary zoning within the community planning permit system area, but also through the identification of a protected major transit station area. And as I understand it, the region is going the direction where the Aurora GO station would be identified as a protected major transit station area, and inclusionary zoning could apply or could be applied within there. And then through inclusionary zoning, you could require a certain amount of affordable housing. We do have the 25% policy townwide. As you said, it's a goal. And it's 35% for the Promenade and MTSA. And so we've added that in the plan. But you have a good point in terms of, we haven't used the word, I don't believe we use the word attainable housing. We certainly have the defined affordable housing as, I believe it's the CMHC definition. It's the same definition that the region of York uses. But we've tried to really expand on, certain housing types that might be permitted in the land use designations or encouraged. One of the things that we mentioned in the fringes of stable neighborhoods, where we might be seeing some properties that might have more redevelopment, on an arterial road, for example, and subject to appropriate transition to low-rise areas, certain denser housing forms would be permitted there. And I think that speaks to the provision of those alternate or additional housing types that would help serve at least part of what people need in terms of having a little bit more of an affordable option than just a single detached dwelling within a stable neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Gardner.
Follow up, please. With respect to inclusionary zoning, I mean, that's something that the city of Toronto, I believe, has just passed. Yes, I think they just have passed that. So that means you could have any kind of housing in any residential zone. Is that what that means?
Mr. Riley?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Gardner. So in Toronto, it's a phased approach, really. They've identified protected major transit station areas, I guess, in phases, and they've also identified inclusionary zoning market areas where, based on a study, they've identified the more need for affordable housing. So the way that the policies and the zoning or they've approached it in Toronto is that after a certain date, I believe it's in September of this year, applications that come in, if you're full rental, you don't need to provide for affordable housing. But if you're an ownership unit, there's a minimum benchmark that you need to achieve. And I don't know if it's every year or there's a certain stepping of years, that number increases. And it's really, I think it's been done that way. I'm not certain, but it's really kind of addressing the need for affordable housing, but also bringing the development community who's building those affordable housing units kind of up to providing it in stages to slowly build that up even more. So there's different ways you can do it. It doesn't need to be with that approach, but in Toronto, it doesn't apply to all residential areas. It's really just what they've identified as, I think they're calling it inclusionary zoning market area 1. And then it's going to expand beyond that eventually, but they're starting around some major transit station areas that they've identified a need.
Thank you.
Mr. Riley. Councilor Gardner. Sorry.
With respect to that inclusionary zoning, I mean, I don't think developers want to build affordable housing. So are they then required to build it in inclusionary zones? Yes.
Mr. Riley.
As through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Gardner, yes, they would be required.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, so what it is, Councilor Gardner, is they're required to provide a certain percentage of their units as affordable, and it has to meet a certain definition of what is affordable. And they have to provide a certain amount, not only of 1 bedroom, but also 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom as affordable. So that's all set out in their inclusionary zoning bylaw.
Thank you. And you think developers are going to want to build like that? You think they're going to be wanting to be developing in inclusionary zonings, because it is all about profit?
Through your, Madam Chair, to the councillor, they will have no choice if they want to build in any of those protected major transit station areas.
Thank you. And the other thing on this is rentals. We've seen that if a developer comes forward and says that a building is going to be rental and it's going to be affordable, and then we give them permission, they don't have to follow through on that. So any advice on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Gardner, I don't believe that there is a way to require that through the official plan, other than, we're reflecting, one of the targets is building purpose-built rental buildings, and I believe it's 500 units it's 1,000 units between now and 2051, and the division is, I think, 500 up to 2031, and then an additional, I think, 250, and then an additional 250 for the next 10-year increments. I believe that's the way it's worded, and that's something that can be exceeded. Certainly, it's just to recognize that we do want to provide purpose-built rental, but I don't believe there is a way to require that. Although, as I mentioned earlier, in Toronto, one of the you could call it an incentive, perhaps, if you build purpose-built rental in an inclusionary zoning market area 1, you don't need to provide any affordable rental units. It's just you're providing, but if you were to switch to ownership, then you would need to. So that's how they've set up their bylaw.
Thanks, and we need those rentals. With respect to employment areas, it's in employment areas. The fourth bullet says you're talking about intensification in the St. John Side Road and Bayview area. That area is a new area. Well, this north part and the south part on the east side, those are both new areas. On the northwest side, that's residential. That area is very intense at the moment. So I think that may not, I guess I'm questioning you on how you've come to that.
Through you,
Because
Madam
it's
Chair.
already a new and intense area. Or maybe I'll just leave that as a comment.
Yeah, I'm happy to look into that. Just
Could you?
I've
Thank you.
written it down. Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
And with respect to stable neighborhoods, I know you've included some intensification in the stable neighborhood areas, but we have to look at the facts. The homes that are being built there are very large homes. They're not intended to have basement apartments. And they're also taking away some of the homes that do provide basement apartments already. So I don't know about your figures there. I'm not sure that they're valid. If you could just check that, please.
Thank you, Councilor Gantner.
How many more minutes do I have, Madam Chair?
You've got about 5.5 minutes.
Oh, boy. Mr. Minow, I did send you some questions, and I've answered most of them myself. But a lot of the policy, I'm looking at section 5. It's saying the same things that were said about the stable neighborhoods. It's more like design policies. So can we operationalize those in the zoning bylaws?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think the question is, well, council has approved the stable neighborhood guidelines and the updates to our zoning bylaws for those specific neighborhoods. As we heard from David and Paul, the language in the official plan regarding the stable neighborhoods is general and high level. And to implement that, we have our zoning bylaw and in our current stable neighborhood guidelines. But again, these are great comments and feedback, and we can take these comments and consider how we can enhance the policies moving forward.
Thank you. There's really no point having them in the policy, in an OP policy, if we can't follow through on them in the zoning bylaw. So, and there's even things 5.4, the private realm built design, well-designed street furniture. That's in our OP. Can we make developers do that? Or because that is the private realm, not the public realm?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through Madam Chair, again, with respect to the urban design guidelines under that section 5.4, the way we implement that in most instances, an applicant or developer will require a development approval. So the overarching policies in the official plan, and then we can ask for urban design guidelines as part of any specific development application. And that's typically how we implement the urban design guidelines. But again, these are good comments, and we'll continue to work towards enhancing the policies where we feel it's appropriate.
Thank you. We do know from experience that design guidelines are just that, guidelines, and staff cannot enforce those with a developer. And there's lots of things, built form. It talks about facades, textures, colors. I don't know, even in one place it says harmony with natural colors. mean, these things are all very nice, but they're meaningless unless we can activate them through the zoning bylaws. With respect to the questions that I sent you, would you have them in front of you, or should I find them?
Ms. Ramuno, you have them handy?
Yeah, you, Madam Chair, no, I do. And to you, Councillor Gardner, I think Paul and David have touched on most, provided answers on most of those. The one I don't think we've touched on that you asked is the Oak Ridges Moraine boundary, whether that's.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moon, I figured that out. That's
Okay.
because it's outside of the built boundary. The
And I was just
countryside.
going to add that our Oak Ridge Moraine conformity exercise OPA 48 is still in effect, and we're not proposing to in amending that. And again, Paul or David could also jump in at any time. I also
see-
wanted.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You continue, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the other comment was whether we touched on this was your question about the draft describes employment areas situated in business parks. I think that sort of terminology, our main business park designation is really along the 404 corridor, and we introduced that designation in term as part of the 2C secondary plan a number of years ago. Our older, more established employment areas along the industrial parkway corridor have that general and light industrial designation. But
Thank
again,
you.
they are both considered employment lands.
Thank you. What about 5.4? No, sorry. 5.6, it's public art, reactively soliciting gifts. Who is going to be in charge of soliciting gifts for public art?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, that's a good point. That's an existing policy that's in our current official plan. We can take a look at revising that language. I think the intent there was it references the public art section where the commitment or the goal was to identify 1% towards public art in any future municipal purpose-built building, and that subsection speaks to soliciting gifts towards a future public art within a building. Again, we will take a look at that language, but that's nothing that's been proposed under this current draft. That's existing language in our current OP, but thanks for bringing that to our attention. We'll take a look at that language.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Bruno.
I believe it still is 5.6.3. If you would
Yes.
look into that, and there's something about under responsible growth, greenfield employment lands. Greenfield employment lands will change intensification in areas that are subject to secondary plans. Okay, if we're going to change the intensification in an existing secondary plan, does that come to council for approval?
Mr. Bruno?
Through you, Madam Chair, and I'll ask the consultants to jump in if I misspeak on this. Yes, I mean, our secondary plans, we're trying to include some of the policies, compile those policies in our various secondary plans within this new update. But those secondary plans will still be there for reference. If there's going to be any change to densities that are different from this current plan, that will be brought to council. There will be a need for an amendment to the official plan at a future date, and that will always come before council for consideration. It will require council approval.
And I guess,
Madam Chair, if I could just add to that,
Sure.
Once you see the final version after we work through it in the summer and fall, as Mr. Romano said, we will be incorporating all the secondary plans into this document and revising it. So where we make a change to any target in those secondary plans, you will see it for that final version.
Thank you.
And thank you. And if you make any changes at all to a secondary plan, I mean, those are council secondary plans. Is that going to come to council for approval?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, the whole package will be there. So you'll be approving a revised official plan and revisions to all the secondary plans, all in one package.
Thank you. I was very glad to see in 5.4 the mention of white roofs. I've recently found out that dark roofs absorb about, they said about 25% of the energy back up, and they absorb the rest, whereas white roofs absorb very little and send most of that back up into the environment. And it's a very easy thing to do for to protect against climate change. So very glad to see that. Thank you. I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
Would you
Councillor
like to
Gardner.
comment on that the white roofs thing? Can we make developers do that?
Mr. Uno?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's part of the recent council approval. It's one of the measures in the Green Development Standards that was approved by council a couple of weeks ago.
Can we make developers do it? Well, no, actually, I think it's in stage 2 or second part of the process. But it's something to think on because it would be a very easy way and not more costly, maybe a little more costly, but not much more costly than the dark roofs. And it would just really make a huge difference. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. First off, through you, Madam Chair, when is the next time this would be before council?
Mr. Riley, I think I saw a date here, but I think it's next year, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Riley, if you know.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gallo, the intent is to bring the official plan and the whole package, as Paul was just referring to, back to council for adoption in early 2023. And this would be after a period of consultation that we're about to embark on and further updates.
So it's fair to say that this is the one and only time this will be before this council for discussion or input, although there are many opportunities for it individually, all of us to provide input between now and the final draft. But it's the intent is for this not to come back to this council.
Through Madam Chair, that's correct. Not to this council, but to the next council. And just to clarify, there will be a public statute. Next step would be a public statutory meeting, and then after that, then adoption. So just an additional step.
I believe through you, sorry, Mr. Lowe, I think there's a chart on page 8 of 10 that sort of suggests your statutory open house, January, February 2023, and then another public meeting, same time frame, and then council adoption, March 2023.
That's correct.
Can I?
Well, sorry, Mr. Councillor Gallo, sorry.
I have some questions about, I haven't gone through the whole thing. So there'll probably be some more between now and adoption individually from me. We recently had a public planning meeting last Tuesday, and it had to deal with the southwest corner of Leslie and Wellington and conversions. And I did a lot of work to try to understand what was happening there. We have in our existing OP comments on conversions, and it currently says that on 11.4A, applications to convert lands designated employment lands to be residential use, retail, or any other non-employment use that is not permitted by this plan within the employment area designation or that is not ancillary or accessory to a permitted employment area use shall, and it says shall, be assessed on the basis of a regional municipal comprehensive review. And that's remaining. And what you're suggesting we remove, the next sentence is, in addition to the regional comprehensive review, the town shall ensure that, and there are about 8 points there that you're recommending removing. And it speaks to, demonstrate the need for a conversion, the lands are not required, and on and on. I believe you're adding that notwithstanding 10.4a, where it says shall be assessed, that any conversions shall be assessed through a municipal MCR process. You're suggesting in number 2, notwithstanding 10.4a, until the next municipal comprehensive review, lands within existing employment lands areas may be converted to a designation that permits non-employment use provided, and then you have a bunch of points there. Is there not a contradiction in that, where in 11AI it says that we shall assess on the basis of a regional municipal comprehensive review if we want to have conversions, but in II it says notwithstanding that council can convert employment lands provided a few things happen. Through you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, through you, Madam Chair, to the council, I'll take a first stab at this. So these are policies that have been revised under the growth plan. And they set out that conversions are only permitted to be undertaken by the upper tier or single tier, and Aurora is a lower tier. So you have to follow what the region determines are appropriate conversions. But then it provides a notwithstanding. And so these are wording right out of the growth plan that allows for the local municipality to consider conversions under certain circumstances. And this is the 40 hectare. We call it as planners the 40 hectare rule, that you can convert lands up to 40 hectares under a couple criteria. And that's the notwithstanding. So most conversions have to go through the region. The local municipality, of course, with the region, approval, can look at 40 hectare conversions under certain criteria.
So through you, Madam Chair, one of the points that needs to be complied with, it says the conversion maintains a significant number of jobs on those lands through the establishment of a development criteria. Would that not exclude residential, converting employment lands to residential? How would you square that point with the residential use, other than maybe condominiums? You have some concierge, some cleaning staff, some superintendents, but other than that, what type of employment would be in a residential use?
Mr. Lutz.
Yeah, certainly. Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. So again, these are words right out of the growth plan. And so what other municipalities are doing when they're looking at this is a significant amount of employment. So it may be that on this site, there has to be some office development as well as a condo on a separate building or as part of the same building, or there has to be retail and other employment uses provided either in the podium or a separate building. So that's what other municipalities are doing when they apply this 40 hectare rule. There's been a couple that have done that, but that's how they look at that conversion of ensuring that there is a significant, and it's up to the local municipality to determine what is that significant amount of employment.
Councilor.
And through you, Madam Chair, this is something that you're recommending we do. It's not necessarily something that we have to do. Is that correct?
Mr. Logs.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, you can choose not to incorporate that policy. As we said, this is a policy right out of the growth plan, and so we're recommending to include that policy from the growth plan. But it's up to you to include it. It's also up to you if you get an application for it, because there's no appeal if you get an application for under the 40 hectare rule and you deny it. There's no appeal on that application.
That's good to know. Because you also in section 17C are removing proposed amendments to the plan involving a conversion of lands designated existing employment area or green field employment area can only occur upon completion of the regional municipal comprehensive review. So you're recommending removing that as well.
Mr. Lowe's?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. Yeah, this is all in fact to make sure we conform to the new growth plan and the policies that require that the region do the MCR.
So would you agree that as it stands right now in our current OP, any employment land conversions would have to go through an MCR process?
Mr. Lowe's, do you know?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. Yes, except under your existing official plan, the MCR process can be done by the local municipality. That's no longer permitted under the growth plan. It has to be done by the region, except for that exception for the 40 hectares.
So I'm sorry, just to be clear, our current OP would allow us to convert employment lands outside of an MCR process?
No, sorry, Madam Chair, through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. No, your existing official plan will allow the municipality to do a conversion through its own MCR. That is no longer permitted by the growth plan. That now has to be done by the region only.
Okay, and we're changing that.
That's correct.
You're recommending we change that. Okay.
That's correct.
So specifically on Schedule B land use planning, and I just focused in on this property because we recently went through it. So it's the southwest corner of Leslie and Wellington. The map recommends currently, it says urban residential, high density urban residential, where previously it was employment lands. So you're recommending changing 10 acres of land, that specific property, to high density urban residential outside of a regional MCR process. And I'm not sure this municipality did an MCR process internally for that. How could that be?
Mr. Lowe's, you can help us with that.
Mr. Riley maybe knows more about this property.
Mr. Riley?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. I believe this is the property where we were reflecting an official plan amendment that had recently gone through.
Lost. Did not go forward. Through you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Riley?
I will have to, I'll have to dig into this a little bit
Right,
more. Yes.
So I mean, obviously it's 10 acres of land that your draft plan is indicating a conversion from employment lands to high density residential. That's a big change. There must be a reason for that to have taken place.
Through you, Madam Chair, we'll discuss it with staff and figure out why this was identified. We were not doing any conversions other than reflecting anything that we thought was already approved. So we'll discuss it with staff. The staff have an idea of the reason for that.
So through you, Madam Chair, maybe it's Mr. Ramuno, if he's aware of how that change happened.
Perfect.
Certainly
Thank
through you,
you.
Madam Mayor. I think what happened here is, and I'll just recognize he's in the background, our senior planner, Edward Terry, who's also the assisting in managing the OP update with our consultants, is with us. I think that mapping change was based on the regional previous reports on the regional conversion. What I'll my suggestion though is, notwithstanding the regional OP and their employment land conversion policies, that the mapping should at the local level should still reflect the employment uses until this council deals with site specific applications. So that's something we'll definitely take back. And, you know, there may be other discrepancies with the maps, but again, this is just the first draft that will ensure that we address all and any discrepancies there may be with the mapping and policies. But I think that's what occurred here in this instance. It was based on the previous reports, the regional employment land conversion report that went through regional council, and that's what was reflected on these maps. But we'll certainly make those adjustments.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And you know, I don't want to just nonchalantly say, you know, we made an error with a map. We have to. It's pretty serious. And I don't know if there's any others because I haven't looked at any others. But 10 acres of employment lands, it's pretty serious. And I know that the issue isn't dead at the region because the residents, they're not pushovers in terms of what happened with that process. And so I'll leave it at that. I'll probably have many more questions once I dig a little deeper in that. But I'm happy to see at least that property is being looked at a little closer.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner. Sorry, I think you're going to see your hand.
Thank you. This is to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, the definition for compatible is, I believe, the same as it was during the stable neighborhood discussion. And at that time, you said that it wasn't, or I think you said it wasn't that clear. Do you have any comment on that? It certainly didn't protect the stable neighborhood according to the policies in the official plan. So does that definition need to be changed?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think we're keeping the same definition, but again, it's something we can certainly take a look at and
Thank
come
you.
back with some
Thank
revised
you.
wording.
I believe you said it wasn't adequate at the time. So if you would kindly do that. With respect to things like 6.6, waste management practices, if we're talking about shall encourage, that's almost a contradiction. And this is talking about food waste recycling, soil pollution, erosion mitigation. Those are, especially the soil, that's really important. So why are we saying shall encourage?
Except Mr. Riley, if you would
Or Mr.
help us, or Mr. Ramuno, I'm sorry. Councillor Gardner, would you
Somebody?
prefer staff? Okay,
Anybody who can answer it, thanks.
all right. Maybe.
Through you,
Mr.
Madam
Ramuno? Thank you.
Chair, no, I see the wording. I'm not sure it looks like I see council shall underline. I'm not sure whether that's a change, but maybe David could jump in here. But again, it's something we'll note and take it back.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno.
Thank you, because I believe that that's in the work that engineering has done on climate change. I believe that erosion mitigation is what they're working on. It's what they want to, one of the things they want to accomplish. So if you could look at that wording. I guess my last comment is with respect to intensification. We're putting, and under affordable housing, we're putting it on corridors, and they're very noisy. And 6.9 addresses noise and air pollution. We're asking people who perhaps can't afford to live in an interior of a neighborhood to choose a place on a very busy road. And how are we going to protect these people with respect to noise in particular, but noise and also air pollution? Because I get a lot of complaints from residents who live on these busy streets who say the noise is intolerable. And they're living in, let me just say in quotes, middle-class homes. So if we're now going to put more affordable housing on these corridors, it doesn't seem right not to protect these future residents, whether they're owners or renters, through some strict guidelines with respect to insulation and windows and screening, perhaps noise attenuation. So could you please speak to that?
Mr. Romano?
Certainly through you, Mr. Mayor. It's something that we currently look at now with any development application along a corridor. Typically, noise studies are required and mitigation measures with respect to some of the things that you've mentioned, Councillor Gardner, the proper insulated windows, insulation, et cetera. But again, we are mandated through the growth plan and our own policies to provide, the affordable or attainable housing, the more intense units along these transit corridors. But again, it's something that we'll also obviously take a look at, but it's something that we look at now with respect to, as part of our review. Noise studies are required along most arterial roads, and builders and developers need to meet certain tests and incorporate the proper noise mitigation within their building construction. But duly noted, and we'll take a look at these policies as well.
Councillor?
I would just like to point out an example that's in place along St. John's Side Road between Bayview and Leslie. We required the developer to do some plantings in this particular subdivision on the Window Street to protect the Window Street residents. And they put in, I don't know, 3 or 4 trees perhaps and some bushes. So when we're doing our planning of these areas that are definitely going to be subject to noise, I mean, obviously St. John's is one, but the other areas, Bayview, we're talking about Bayview and Leslie, Young, we need to protect these residents. It's just, noise can be very destructive to quality of life. And certainly we should be asking for substantial plantings. I mean, maybe we can't enforce something in the building code with respect to better windows or better insulation. Maybe we can, but we do have control over what we require developers to plant. And they should be substantial, and they should be hopefully long lasting with deep roots. We know from the windstorm, we want them to have deep roots. But this is very important and really is a very small cost to developers and might be a big benefit to residents. So for future public planning reports that come forward in these areas, I would like to see some viable plantings to protect the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, Council? Councilor Gilliland, second time.
Just real quickly, I had spoken to Mr. Marino offline, but also does the OPR also address the accessory motion, the dwellings, the enabling policies for that? I had just wanted to make sure. For you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Marino.
Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's to Councilor Gilliland. It's there. I've seen it. I just can't, I'll have to find it for you, but we have included, or the consultants have included the policy within the OP that deals with the permission of additional apartments within accessory dwellings on residential lots. So it's there.
Perfect.
Councilor?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 9.3. See, this one is Aurora Town Square Governance, Town Staffing Update. Number 2, recommendation, the report number CMS 22-029 be received. 2, that a full-time facility crew lead position commence at the start of 2023, be approved and be funded from the Aurora Town Square operating budget. 3, that a full-time customer service representative position commence at the start of 2023, be approved and be funded from the Aurora Town Square and other operating budgets as outlined in this report. And 4, that allocation of the Aurora Town Square operating funding be approved to support the technical specialist role on an interim basis until the governance matters are finalized. Someone like to move the recommendation? No one wants to move it? Okay. I get someone to move to receive it. Councillor Kim, seconder. Councillor Gillen, any comments or questions? Councillor Gardner, you have your hand up?
Mr. Mayor, was up to receive.
Oh, okay. Do you have any comments or questions?
I do. I just need to find them if anybody else wants to speak.
So far, I have nobody.
Okay. Well, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, we've already approved 2 new positions recently. And I mean, I don't know. How much money is in the town square budget? And how much money are these going to cost us?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly with an annual operating budget of, at this point, annually with a 720,000, which was part of the approval 2019, annually ever since 2019, the operating budget has been in place, 240,000 each year till now. Now we're at the 720. With that, certainly the staffing complement, I think by assessment, our treasurer has the total for you. This report actually has the summarized positions on page 5 of the report that summarizes the expenditures for the full-time positions. It's important to understand that the operating budget that is currently in place is the net operating budget. So it's not intentional that 720 is simply to cover staff dollars. That is inclusive of net revenues for the facility. These positions are tabled today more because obviously there's critical aspects on being ready for doors open. We recognize that the opening date at this point is in the spring of 2023 or being turned over to the town in spring of 2023. The goal here is that if we don't go to council for consideration of budget until January, the requirement of these positions, and they are just the initial requests for a facility crew lead and a customer service rep. They are to assist with that onboarding and preparations of commissioning from the facility side, the commissioning of the site, and as the report spells out some of the roles that we're responsible for. The customer service role is certainly needing to come on board in advance of the doors open as well, due to the preparations for the box office system. And again, the report speaks to those roles. The operating dollars for Town Square certainly can accommodate these positions as it was deemed to be accommodated within the budget as it is. So a little bit long-winded answer, but I hope that helps you.
Councillor?
Thank you. I did see the chart. Thank you for reminding me. The technical specialist interim solution, it's $80,000. Is that for a year?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the $80,000, we've done a brief assessment of similar roles in other performance centers. That is an average rate for a tech specialist for an annual salary or an annual income. Again, these are identified as annual, but they would be brought on board at the appropriate time. So if the date moves for the acquisition or handover of occupancy, we obviously would not post for these positions until that time is appropriate.
Councillor?
Thank you. It sounded from the report that all of these positions would have quite a lot to do as soon as they got into place, and not only with the Town Square, but with other, help us out in other ways. So I'm thinking perhaps we're not, well, I won't say it, but I think, but we had quite a fight over the hiring staff in the last budget. So the 240 times 3, and we also used the moving of the cultural center. We also included that, I believe, in that budget, which wasn't envisioned originally. So if we do this, if we hire these 3 people and with the cultural center costs. Do you know how much would be left in the town square budget?
Ms. McDougall?
I believe the treasurer has that summarized
Okay,
for
thank
the
you.
annual, if it were to be brought on right at the beginning of the year. So if
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So for this budget of the 720, so again, as Ms. McDougall said, that's the net amount that includes future revenues that would be expected. We would be with all of these proposed positions plus what's currently being spent would be at 471,000 of the total 720. So we'd still be not at the full amount at that point in time, and also not generating any revenues as of yet through those numbers.
Counselor?
Right, thank you. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that when we put forward the 720, we said exactly what we were going to use it for. But I don't think I remember anything about these particular positions being used for that money.
Ms. McDougall?
through you, Mr. Mayor, the business plan and the operating plan for this type of facility would definitely require facility staff for maintenance and care, as well as customer service staff in order to handle a reception and a customer service or box office station. Those were communicated back in the original state. Certainly technical specialists to operate such a high performance center is also a role that would have been required. What is being tabled here is certainly we do not have existing staff that could manage this for me to transition or transfer them over to the center without leaving a deficit somewhere else. So part of the operating plan was always assumption there will definitely need to have new staff for this town square complex. That was part of the plan.
Counselor?
Thank you. Am I correct in remembering from the report that they would also be helping out in other places with other of our facilities?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly with regards to the facility staff, as an example, and noted in the report, there are other facilities in the vicinity that they may be commissioned or positioned in, depending on the need of the day, if there's set up requirements, and they do support those other facilities in the area, depending on where their shifts are needed. Customer service, the intention there is that they certainly would be supportive of and being familiar and operate. So if a need is at a rec center, they could technically go and work at a rec center and vice versa. So they're interchangeable is the goal that we have for our staff.
Thank you. Counselor, before I go back to you, I just need a motion to extend the hour, Council. Counselor Kim, Counselor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Counselor Gardner, go ahead.
Just last question. Are we short staffed, Ms. McDougall?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, short-staffed at our other centers? No, we are manning all of the hours that our facilities are open at this time.
Good.
Counselor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm always in support of staff when it comes to, I wouldn't say always, but when there's a good business case presented, I'm always willing to listen and support staff when it comes to resource deficiencies and closing that gap. The one area where I feel uncomfortable about the hires is because I don't see an overarching plan or a roadmap, because it seems like we're, and I understand the need that we need to hire a town square manager, that's an obvious need to manage the governance and all the stakeholders. But now that we're hiring technical support person, a full-time customer service rep, and there's an indication that we're going to be hiring a couple of part-timers down the road. And I do understand the need, and we are opening next year. So we do need the bodies. But I would like to see a plan where year one, here's the roadmap. Year two, here's the roadmap. I like to see in most business plans, I like to see a total addressable market. Here's the need, here's the demand. This is our forecast. And based on this, we anticipate that we're going to need staffing X amount, these roles in year 1, in year 2, and as we roll out the services. And I don't get the sense that that plan is there. And I understand that with COVID and everything, that some of that may not have been possible. But right now, I just don't feel the comfort level to do these hirings piecemeal without some overarching plan, even for year 1. So that's why I'm hesitant to, I am hesitant to support the recommendation. I'll rethink this, and I'll be more than happy to talk to Ms. McDougall and our CAO between now and council. But those are the reasons why I just feel uncomfortable right now to make that decision.
Thank you. Councilor Gallo?
Thank you. Just to go through the finances again, the 720, I think it is, was net, which included revenue. But I believe we're delayed in terms of a start date for the calculation of that revenue. Someone may correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was fall or so. Have we made adjustments for that through you, Mr. Mayor, to whomever?
Mr. Sale?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. So the 720, just as a reminder, was the number that was arrived at when all of the existing resources that are being spent in that area. So it included the budget that council gives to the cultural center, as well as the existing facility costs at the time and all the other supports that were already being spent in the area. And then all of that money was sort of, all that funding was pooled, as was the revenues that are coming from the existing site that's under construction now, but including the revenues that came from the cultural center as part of their operation when they sold tickets and so on. So all of that was all bundled together, and a net cost resulted that was basically council's contribution, whether it was grants to ACC, whether it was staff for facilities, whether it was programs, whatever it was, that was all netted out. And then that was put aside, and a complete business plan was done for the new facility. And it projected all the revenues that would be possible, all the usage that would be possible with the expanded facility, as well as all the extra costs that would be associated with the facility, everything from heat and hydro to facility maintenance to programming. And when you compare those two numbers, that's where the 720 a year came from. Now, I'll just remind council that was based on the ideal scenario where it was a municipal service corporation, where there was just one level, there was no partnerships. You were basically, lean and mean, if you will. One of the early decisions this council made was to abandon the municipal structure, or the municipal capital corporation, which was recommended by staff. It was seen as not the right way to go, given the history of the involvement of the cultural center and other partners. And so at that moment, we're off of that plan to a degree. To what degree, we're not sure, because that's part of the ongoing negotiations and working we've been doing with the other partners of the square. So the positions that are put forward here are just the ones that we think are needed in any scenario. The ones that relate to the technical, that relate to the fact that there'll be a person sitting in that building accepting the public into it. As far as the revenue changes from the delay, those aren't factored in, and they haven't been factored in. The 720 sits in the budget at this stage. So it's just sitting there as a holding amount. And we expect to come to the new council with the 2020, starting with the 2023 budget, with the new vetting of those two bodies of expenses based on the roles that are taken on by the partners at the facility. So the town, the cultural center, and the library. Because you'll recall, one of the changes that has been made is there's an IT change. So the library will now be supporting the IT costs from their budget and allocating that to the town, because it's been agreed the town will provide the IT. So all of that has to be, that still should be in that net 720 number, because these are always things that were anticipated. But we just have to work through all of those details now about what does the actual staffing plan look for all three organizations with a fully functioning facility. And that's what will come back and will be netted against the 720. So these positions that have been approved by council so far and the ones that are on the table tonight are only the ones that we feel need to be in place as we commission the building because of the expertise that we want these people to have about the new equipment and the new processes that will go on inside that much larger facility. And that's more than what you asked for, but I'm trying to put it all in the context.
Counselor?
And I think that's where my hiccup is, because there are some things that have happened that haven't been revisited. And you mentioned some of them, particularly the revenue, which tells me that the 720, unless we can delay a whole bunch of stuff on the expense side, that 720 is now more, whatever that amount is. I have no idea, because we wouldn't be generating the revenue from the fall to the spring. And anticipated spring, who knows if that even happens, and that's 10 months away or so, if it's April, May of next year. So I think there's some work to be done analyzing all this before we start hiring people. And that's kind of where I'm hesitant, especially these, we're in the end of June, and an anticipated opening is probably April, May next year. That's a long ways away. And so that's kind of where my headspace is between now and council. It may change, but that's where I sit.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. Just comments. I'm not going to repeat what Councillor Gill and Councillor Kim said, but there are some unanswered questions, so I'll be happy to speak offline as well, just to get some more clarity. I guess I did have some questions just about kind of like the salaries and kind of how it came to, as far as competitiveness. I was just a little shocked with some of the salary for a customer service representative at that rate. Is this something that's market, or is this like a managing position? I when I saw that, I was just a little floored just from that number.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, both the union facility crew lead and the customer service are existing roles that we have now, and they are using an existing pay scale. This is not a number I've pulled from somewhere outside of us. This is utilizing HR's pay scale grade for these positions. The tech specialist is something we don't have, so we've had to do a bit of research to know what would be comparable. And subsequently, that's why it's sitting here as a sort of a rounded number as a contracted scenario, as an interim solution.
Councillor?
Interesting. I guess that was an oversight on my part. And maybe just understanding the definition of what a customer service representative is could be so broad. It could be so many different things from different levels of experience or skill. So I'm assuming that there's different, I guess, boxes or things that you tick off that would have different seniority levels or skill levels as a CSR, or is that just a generalized position?
Ms.
Through
McDougall?
you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And actually, just to also emphasize, that figure you're seeing is inclusive of all benefits, part of any wage. So it's not just their hourly rate, it's that plus an employee's benefits. So that's to be considered. As far as the customer service CSR, there is not a varying pay band. All of our CSRs are in the same pay band. We definitely have supervisors that are at a different pay band. We have one, in fact, but the rest of the CSRs are all in the one pay band.
Councillor?
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that clarity.
You, any other comments, questions? All the vote. Just receiving. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have 9.4. Recommendations that report number CMS 22-03 be received, and 2, that the mural design prepared by Moonlight Murals Collective be approved. So someone like to move the recommendation? Counselor Gallo, Counselor Kim. Any comments, questions on this one? Counselor Gallo?
At what point does the location be determined?
Mr. Rose.
Didn't waste your time.
It's been a long night and you finally get a question.
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The question I believe was about when we know, but yeah. So I think we're closing in on, we've had conversations with Mr. Lind from Leonard Lind Realty. Met with him on site just last week. And I think we're kind of closing in on that being the preferred location. We haven't had a lot of comment back from the other property owner that we recommended here in the report, which is adjacent to Batchel's Alley. So Mr. Lind has said he's going to take down his existing mural. We can use as much space as we need. There's a couple provisions. He wants to provide a little bit of space at the top for additional sort of marketing and advertising for him. So I think we're basically at the point where we're ready to basically execute an agreement. I mean, if we're going forward with approval tonight with the design, Mr. Lynn is more than accommodating, and he said that he's ready to go at any stage.
Counselor?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's not going to be a decision of council. It'll be staff that will decide where it goes.
Mr. Rose?
Mr. Mayor, at the time of writing the report, we didn't have those. We've been kind of going back and forth with Mr. Lynn. So some of those conversations have been tightened up over last week or so, subsequent to drafting the report. If there is an additional recommendation from council, that'd be great. But at this point in time, we presented both options and we're looking for obviously feedback from council if there was one that was preferred over the other. But again, our approach going through it was whatever property owner kind of stepped forward first and provided a space that we thought was appropriate and provided the I guess the prominence we're looking for in this mural, that we'd proceed with that property owner.
Council?
I think that's a no.
I think, Councilor, I think basically what's being put forward is that we as a council, unless we stipulate otherwise, is that we're approving sites that are being presented to us. And so if we approve this, then any of those sites that essentially come forward and for on the first come, first served basis, then staff would just go forward with that.
I think I'd recommend between now and council that at least there's a third recommendation saying picking the site, because currently we're not.
Yeah.
The two recommendations are not suggesting a site. We're not picking a site tonight. That's why I asked the question, when are we picking a site? And if we're not picking a site and it's staff picking a site, that's all I need to hear. And if they have authority to do that, then off we go.
Sale, you want to add?
Just to clarify, it was not staff's intention to pick a site. We couldn't nail down either of the owners, and the artists we're trying to move the project forward and put a little pressure on the whole exercise to get to that decision. If council has a preference, we have no problem with one or the other. But right now, as Mr. Rose said, it's looking more like the one site. If this report were being written today, it would be weighted towards that one site where we think we have an agreement now. But at the time of the report, they were both sort of floating around, both expressing interest, neither one fully committing at the time.
I'll put a recommendation tonight to add that the site be Leonard Lynn's building.
That's fine. And we can do that. And Mr. Rose, I was just going to ask, just as a follow-up, do you think that you'll have more information come next week?
Mayor, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and if there's more information, if I want to sort of, put into writing what I mentioned as far as the conversations with Mr. Lind between now and then.
I just mean, do you think that you'll get a response from a more firm response from Mr. Lind by next week?
I think we have a very firm response from Mr.
Okay.
Lind. Yeah, I mean, I can probably get something more in writing, but having met him on site at his property, he said, the space is yours.
Okay.
Again, he provided some provisions, but I feel like we have a verbal agreement already in place.
Thank you. So Councilor Gallo, if you wanted to add, that Leonard Lynn's property be the preferred location.
I don't see any other
You okay
choice
with-
that's feasible.
You're good with that? You okay with that second? So I'll just add that on. I won't even, okay. All right. Yeah, we'll figure out the address between now and next week, but we'll just add it on as Leonard Lynn's building. Okay? Is that all, Councilor Gillen?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Gillen?
Thank you. And while we're on the topic of, location, I like the fact that, just as a comment through Mr. Mayor to Phil, Mr. Rose, that I do like the fact that council could have some involvement in the decision making. It's, I mean, we're all engaged in it for the right reasons. And knowing that we have options, I think is great. And collectively, when we have these conversations, I think good things can come out of it. Having said that, and I've been pretty vocal from the start, you know, having that public art master plan, I think is going to really help us as a tool, a guiding tool of the process in which we, you know, handle these things moving forward. So I guess my question through Mr. Mayor and Mr. Rose is, although we're approving this mural tonight or hopefully we are tonight, this public master art plan, is that something that's going to be completed before we start moving forward with any other subsequent murals of such significance?
Ms. Rose?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Gilland. Yes, the short answer is yes. We're still putting together a public art master plan. You know, little by little, we're putting it together, and the hope is that there are fewer and fewer, and maybe none, unofficial, what we call unofficial public art projects, which are those projects that happen outside of an actual public art policy or plan being in place. So I think, you know, this is probably the last one that we're looking at that will happen outside of that process.
Councillor?
Perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear. So at least we can be a little consistent. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Well, that carries. Last item, 9.7. See if we can get this done in 10 minutes. Is that report number PDS 22042 be received. 2, that the Town of Aurora Cultural Heritage Evaluation Checklist to evaluate properties for cultural heritage interest be adopted. 3, that 30 properties contained within the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act in accordance with the Heritage Consultant's recommendations. 4, that the town clerk be authorized to publish and serve council's notice of intention to designate 30 properties in accordance with the requirements of the Ontario Heritage Act. 5, that the designation bylaws for the 30 properties be brought before council for adoption if no objections are received within the 30-day period as per the Ontario Heritage Act. 6, that the 57 properties contained within the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest be delisted in accordance with the Heritage Consultant's recommendations. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Kim, Councillor Gilliland. Any comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this was quite a long process, and I think it was well done. We had the addition of Jacqueline Stewart on the committee towards the latter part of it. I think these recommendations are good, and I certainly support them.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Notice motion. We have one that will be at council next week. There's no regional report. We say we'll do new business and stuff if we still got to do it. I thought we said if we extend the hour, we're going to cut it out, but all right. New business. Councillor Gallo. No. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gardner, new business.
It's National Aboriginal Day, and there's going to be a great free concert on June 25th at the town park, sponsored by the Cultural Center. It's going to be Afro, Cuban jazz, Brazil, Haitian music, and rara reggae. So it's going to be fantastic. And Mr. Mayor, I would like to, we've welcomed a family from Ukraine to the Aurora Village Co-op, and lucky people, because it's a great place to live. But I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, if you would know, there's a lot of Ukrainian refugees in town and they have nothing, or not in town, but in the region. Is it possible that we could provide them free YRT transportation, at least in the short term? How could we go about making that happen?
So Council of the Region already does that. I'll send you the link where they can get all the information of where they need to go get those Presto passes and everything. They do. the region is supplying, I think, I believe for 6 months, I believe it is. But I can look at
Fantastic.
it. And I can make sure I'll get you the link tomorrow.
That would
Okay.
be fantastic. I have something else to add, but I'll see if anybody else has.
No, everyone's ready to go.
Okay, so, Mr. Mayor, we've spoken about my need to stay on Zoom. I'm going to be my daughter's primary caregiver after her next endometriosis surgery, which is major and unfortunately risky. I must be COVID-free, and we saw last week that COVID is still with us. So I would just like to thank council for bearing with me on this. And, you know, I'm on Zoom. I don't have a choice, but I thank you very much for understanding. And I can't wait to get back to the council table. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. All right. I'm going to forego public service announcements. Mr. Crick, can we add them next week? All right, we'll add them next week. All right, because I know there's probably some things that everyone would like maybe throw out there come next week. So we'll add it next week as long as we don't run into extra time as well. But I did just want to mention before I ask for adjournment is that it is National Indigenous Peoples Day. And it's an important day. We did do an unveiling at the town park. Beautiful artwork from an Indigenous gentleman, Donald Chrétien. If you have an opportunity, get out to the town park, take a look at this fabulous piece of art. It is a tremendous piece. Honestly, it's very beautiful. You just have to see it for yourself. It's got a nice description on the backside of it as well, explaining the artist as well as the meaning of the artwork as well. So if you get a chance, please go out there and tell everyone to go out there. And I'm sure everyone's going to see it on Saturday during the farmers market. So I want to thank Donald Chrétien and York Region Art Council for their work in getting that piece of artwork into our town parks. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim,